Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Season 7 of the Clam World Cup. We're on the English broadcast brought to you by IPL. My name is K-Bot, and I am joined by someone who has not done much commentary as of late. But if you've been around in the Splatoon community, you recognize his voice. Zach, how are you doing this morning?
Mr. K-Bot, absolutely fantastic. A little tired, but that's to be expected. Very much so looking forward to seeing how these very dominant Japanese teams adapt to this Clam Blitz tournament, especially using the maps provided to us for the month of June.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a fun one here. For those of you that are not aware, we are watching Clam Blitz for the entire day today, and things might get a little bit repetitive as we're only limited to the maps that were in this month's map rotation. So for reference, that is Muscle Forge, Inkblot, Sturgeon, Port Mackerel, Arowana Mall, Gobi, sorry, not Gobi. Yeah, no, that's Gobi Arena. What am I doing? Something's wrong with my brain this morning. Gobi Arena, Piranha Pit, and Skip Pavilion. So a few names of maps that you haven't seen, and one of the things you'll notice is that starting off for round one, things will be starting on a predetermined map, and then we'll be switching to random for the group stage. So our first map of the day is going to be Port Mackerel. So I hope you all have woken up because we are about to get right into this. We haven't even got the chance to introduce our teams. But the one team you'll really want to watch out for, 313-02928 is their team name. Don't ask me what that number is for. Maybe it's a phone number over there in Japan or something. I couldn't tell you. But that is a team of Rusu, Pineapple, Taiji, and Pion, all of whom are names you recognize if you follow Japanese.
Yeah, and they're going to be going up against La France here. And looking at the team comps, we do see some very interesting weapons. I do see a Grim Range Blaster as well as a Jet Squelcher. And of course, some normal staples like we have the NZ-35 to quickly farm up those ink armors. Notably as well, we're watching here the Bamboo, which is going to be using those 10 missiles. And of course, the Curling Bomb, great for a map like Port with those super long and narrow hallways for the ease of getting around the map.
Absolutely, and opting for that variant with the Curling Bomb as well. You mentioned those long hallways, going to be a great way to go ahead and get down those, especially when you're trying to make a push for your team. But on the other side of the map, in the same team, we're actually seeing that Grim Range Blaster here as well. Something that should be able to take solid control of some of these hallways as both of these teams trying to fight over mid. It looks like it's going to be La France that's able to get the first power climb in the basket. There's not going to be a ton of follow-up here unless they can find a few more. Looks like one player starting to sneak forward, but is going to get caught out. Now one player coming in from behind, trying to get in position for the basket, but is going to get taken care of by the rest of 313.
Yeah, it looked like some great defense there by the Bamboo. And going quickly back to specials, you noticed that there was a 10 attack on the side of La France, and I really think that the Inkjet is very good for this map where you have a lot of low barriers that you can technically get up and clear using the exhaust fumes from that Inkjet, and the maneuverability and the ability to get around is really helpful. But you see here on the side of 313, 26, now 28 clams. They're really looking forward to a push here. As you mentioned, K-Bot, not a strong start from La France, but at least they're on the board as they lose a power clam, and now two. This might be a bad turnaround here on the side of 313.
Just not quite enough specials for 313 to actually make their way into the basket. One of the things about Port Mackerel is that the barriers are so close to one another. You see one player here already in position for La France to throw another power clam in the basket, and they're going to get immediately a few more points on the board. Here comes the Bubble Blower, allowing for this follow-up with this power clam as well as we start to see the defensive positions holding, but it's already down to the 20-point mark for the hometown heroes of 313. Things are looking scary at the halfway point in this game.
And that's where later on in the tournament, you are going to have a little bit more ability when you do have a loss to come back, because there will be counter-picking in the bracket stage. But in this first best-of-3 round robin portion, it's going to be random. So you're really going to have to make that push. And the barricade is finally broken here as we see a power clam go in. And that's going to be instantly going down from 180 to 60. And it's only 3v3 on each side here. We see some members here. One gets popped on the very top of the map here as an Inkjet once again comes out, and that's going to force a 2-down situation. And that Inkjet is unfortunately going to fall, and that will mean the end of the push here, as that was just enough defense despite losing 2.
but they already have 3 power clams again. And actually, there's a 4th one back there. Looks like that's the pity clam underneath their own barriers. You start to see the offensive pressure come back in, but a lot of these 1v1s are actually going to the favor of LaFrance. They're able to just be able to stop at least one of these power clams, preventing these pushes from getting completely out of hand. I mean, that's an intimidating sight when you're staring down the barrel of 3, 4 power clams on the enemy team. But this LaFrance team is holding incredibly strong, especially given that long-range presence of that Jet Squelcher. You see picking off one and now forcing this other team to regroup. They're starting to build up a little bit more in control around this barrier as well. We'll have to see what the response is from 313. Actually, no, now they're 3 down. Not going to be able to do much of anything for now, and mid-control is going to swap back to this pink side.
Yeah, and they're going to lose 2 members here. The 4 Squeezer's going to come back up, and these hallways are not too, thankfully, far off from where you dunked the power clam. But as you mentioned, from mid, perspectively, the power clam is quite close. And this is probably the 3rd or 4th time this game that we've already seen them grab up to 30 power clams so far. So it will really come down to, can they make a final push here without overextending? They already dropped one of those power clams and are able to find a pick here on the Tenatech, so you don't have to worry about that 1 jet there, and they're going to make their push now. They're going to start it and get all the way up to 30 here. Can they get 2 more clams in to take the lead? But they're not able to make the offensive here. The bubble blower was able to shut them down. They have an inkjet behind, and they are going to be able to take the lead here in the waning seconds of this game, and they won't need the remaining time as they will force that knockout.
Well done to scrap that one together. Turns out at the end of the day, even if you can win a lot of the 1v1s up on front, you have to make sure you're maintaining that presence. That's something that LaFrance just could not do quite at the end. You saw that bubble blower come out. I think it caught some of the members of 313 out by surprise, but after a while, they're able to adapt. Once they know where their opponents are coming from, and once they know what positions they're trying to hold with these defensive weapons. It's one of the things is that with a relatively shorter range composition, with all of these shooters we're seeing in the meta now, you're not going to be able to be in a lot of different positions, especially on a map like Fort Mackerel. It's very straightforward, right? So props for the adaptation coming in from 313, able to scramble in, throw those last few power clams in the basket, and it should be an incredibly interesting one to see, given just how close that match was, especially ahead of time. I mean, the other side was like 1 power clam away from ending the game about 2.5 minutes ago. So should be interesting here as we head to Inkblot.
Yeah, that was Rusu top fragging on the side of 3130298, and their comp made a lot of sense, and I'm hoping that as we go to Inkblot Art Academy, we see some of that same thinking and mindset. You know, it's likely, again, we'll see some sort of ink farming weapon, ends up being the weapon of choice there, the ends up 85, and Pion, of course, known for chargers. Will we see something longer range come out, as there is a pretty good sniper overlook for Inkblot, and of course you have these side areas where you're allowed to enter and potentially build up some special. Potentially could also be a good map for something like the Inkjet, where you can just kind of roam around. It's not that big a map, and you might be able to get up onto that higher elevation with that special. We also saw the bubble blower come out, and that was on the side of LaFrance. Will they be able to use that to their ability if they bring it back here on Inkblot Art Academy?
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, I imagine we'll see a lot of bubbles today. Such a strong, special weapon right now in the meta, especially paired with this foil squeezer. Once you get a player that really is an expert on this weapon, they can do some quite incredible things. Looks like John going over to this Squiffer here. So a little bit in the middle between a bamboo, but that's one of the things about Clam Blitz. It's one of the most mobile modes. You're always going to want to be moving your position around, trying to find your opponent, trying to pick up clams, because one of the things about Clam Blitz is the objective is pretty much can spawn anywhere on the map. You really have to be mobile and on your feet, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're going to see more bamboos and Squiffers today as opposed to chargers. But of course, we'll have to see what exactly comes out of the rest of this here. It looks like neither team can really build a firm hold. Looks like we're starting to see 313 take a little bit more control of it.
Yeah, the movement here is phenomenal, and I also want to call out, of course, the gear that they're bringing here. We can see a favoritism on both sides towards Object Shredder and, of course, jumping in to their teammates. The ability to come back and really keep a push going as they're spawning in, and Stealth Jump is really being favored by both of these teams for that reason. We see an early pick there onto Pion, so Pion is going to fall, and we'll see it go down to 3v3 as the Tenatech, which is likely their Slayer/Skirmisher weapon, is really going in a full wipe wipe here actually coming out. So this will be a huge opportunity with 19 power clams to get something going and break the scoring.
The thing is, this barrier is incredibly close to spawn, and so I don't think 313 adapted quite fast enough to get over here in time, and so there's going to be a little bit of a response here. You see the targeting on that power clam, but here come the specials to follow up. Ink Armor, Ink Jet up in the sky right now for 313, but the defense is actually going to hold quite well. Only one power clam getting in the basket before the entire team gets wiped. Well done there, especially Jet Squelcher, Forest Squeeze are able to pick things out from afar. Very nice trade here coming out. Kenza 52 is able to capitalize on this for LaFrance. We'll have to see what their response is. They have to fill up a lot more clams before they start making a push of their own. Looks like there are plenty on the map right now.
Call K-Bot Tony Romo because he predicted that play quite well here. Only able to break the barrier with that one power clam. Not able to do much. And we saw here the Bubble Blower is back up and online for La France. And they had the Inkjet to start things off. 25 clams and is enough to break the barrier, and they're going to be able to push one forward, but they lose a pivotal member here. Their backliner is going to fall. They are going to have the Booyah Bomb with the remaining 2 members online, and that is going to be enough to give them the lead on the point, but they're just not finding the picks necessary to keep much of this push going. They do have one member still sort of sharking around and able to actually do a pretty good job bringing this score all the way up past 50, and like I said, the ability to jump in and get those extra few clams at the last second may pay dividends at the end of the match.
It's going to be all a matter of those last few clams. And speaking of those last few clams, I bet that player of La France wishes they wouldn't have come up just a bit short on that power clam throw. Don't worry, folks. Even when you do that in your solo queue games, it's done at the highest level of Japanese gameplay. So fear not, you are not alone. But nonetheless, we're starting to see 313 build up a little bit more mid control. They've already got a power clam, and actually they've got their pity clam back underneath the basket. But now it's another 2-down situation. It looks like mid control is going to go right back over to La France. Actually, they might actually opt to push this. Booyah Bomb coming out here as they're starting to rush Plat. We'll have to see what kinds of advantages they can find. Splash Wall comes out, providing a little bit of a shield for some of these members to follow up, and here comes those bubbles as well, pushing these members of 313 back. You see these follow-up clams. Will they have enough to finish it? They will. That'll be game 2 going to La France.
Yeah, I love the adaptability there. I was wondering when we were going to see some other meta weapons like the K52 come out. A very divisive weapon, but one that has undeniable power where you can set up that splash wall. And also, we saw the Booyah Bomb there tanking the missiles, basically all 10 just about of those missiles. And of course, that foil squeezer that we saw building up those bubbles that were able to push back the members of 313 in this revenge game and take us to a game 3.
Yeah, I mean, well done and impressive stuff there, especially I think on that last push, right? Able to use the splash wall, then able to use the bubble blower. They're staggering their specials once they're actually inside and underneath their opponent's barrier to force around their opponents even more. And, you know, you mentioned with things like the Kenza 52, that weapon is so pesky. A skilled player on that weapon has a Booyah Bomb at their disposal. They've got too much run speed and too much swim speed to know what to do with. And they've got a splash wall they can throw down to just create different kinds of opportunities that not many other weapons in the game have. And so that's one of the reasons why this weapon is so strong right now. But you can see here, right, providing a very nice shield to throw in a few clams and potentially even lead your team on the way to a knockout. So we're heading to a random map for game 3 here between these two squads. It would be quite interesting to see 313 lose this early in the tournament. Of course, first and second out of each pool are going to advance to the single elimination knockout stage later in the day. But for now, we're heading to Gobi Arena here, which is another kind of interesting one. Take me through this map a little, Nine. Zach, whatever.
9.
9.
No, so
why did I think I was commentating with 9? Man.
This is going to be a bit more of a different map than I think we saw in our first two. You know, Port and Inkblot, you have a little bit of an opportunity, and we saw that there to sort of come back after losing pretty much everybody. We saw multiple full team wipes, but Gobi is going to be a bit of a different story. You're really going to have to make use of that stealth jump and be smart about it in order to get back into the fight, because this is a rather long map. Looking at the team comps here, we are going to see Pyeon switch off of those shorter range chargers and go for a full-on Firefin Splat Charger. The GRB is coming back, as is the Tenatech. Splattershot on both sides of things. And La France seems to really have enjoyed for the rest of the composition here what they did in Game 2, picking up that W. So they're going to mostly stick with the same composition.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you see a lot of the same weapons coming out. Kensa 52 holding strong, and that Jet Squelcher able to provide a lot of range and pumping out a lot of ink. I imagine that most of mid's going to be covered by that Jet Squelcher once it gets up on its perch. Now, Pineapple actually going to be able to pincer another one of these members off of La France, and now we're starting to see mid control getting built up by 313. They just don't have a power clam at the ready quite yet. And it looks like they might commit some of their specials to just trying to keep their opponents at bay, letting them build up a little bit more. And now's the go button with that ink armor coming out, but the 10 missiles come out to counter it immediately. There is so little map coverage already in mid, and a very nice defense coming in from La France before their opponents could even think about touching this barrier.
Yeah, Rusu trying to shark around there, ended up being found by Meta there, and it looks like Poyo is going to be able to break the barrier here for La France. They are going to have just a few power claims, and you do see that they committed both the Inkjet and the Bubble Blower to this, but we're not seeing too crazy of dividends here. It is 3 versus 3, but a great amount of adaptability here by 313 to get back and really play defensive here. So this is going to be that difference I was talking about between the maps, where you're going to have to maintain that pressure. And it looks like the specials sort of got away from them for La France, where they weren't able to capitalize too much. And now, as the members of 313 advance back into mid, they're going to be having the advantage in specials and get the first pick as a result.
They're going to be able to get the first pick. How much will they be able to follow up, though? Is now one of the members of the front lines is going to go down. Not able to trade that back away is our Tanatech player right here. Able to find a jump coming into mid, but it's going to get taken down immediately. And a 1v2 in mid. It's going to go to the favor of La France again. Now, Blue Bomb coming in, going to allow this power plume to follow up. And how much more will they be able to provide? Unfortunately, not many specials online right now. Bubble Blower is just about ready to roll, and I imagine we'll see that come out soon. Trying to get this one back in, is going to be able to find a few clams to follow up, but now it's just one person alive. So defense was able to hold relatively well here for 313 as they keep their opponents down to 52, but now they're going to find an immediate response. Power clam in the basket. This Toxic Mist is so annoying to work around, especially when you have to be so close to this barrier in order to throw a few clams in the basket, and it's going to dissuade 313 from really committing all their resources in here.
Yeah, the Toxic Mist is so oppressive on areas like in Port and like in Gobi, where you have such thin hallways to go through. We also saw a 1v1 in the back of the map going on, which Meta won for La France, so that is going to give them a little bit of an advantage here. The nice range of the Foil Squeezer also going to be taking out Taiji there, and the Bubble Blower getting back online, but they're going to fall, and that's 2 specials still online here for 313, including their Ink Armor. And of course, if there's one sub-weapon that I think people say that they main over the main weapon, it is going to be the burst bombs, which we've seen Pineapple use to great effect here with these burst bombs. They're going to be able to get off the 10 missile, but a counter missile is going to take them out. 2-down situation here for 313, and as we get to about the minute-and-a-half mark, we're seeing much more of a metered play and much more of a stalemate than we've seen in those first 2 games. Shows how long this map is and how relatively even these 2 teams have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, La France, though, able to find a little bit of a push. Able to get a few more claims to the basket again, taking this down to the 39-point mark, making it just that much more difficult for these claims to find the basket of 313. The one thing that 313 doesn't have at their disposal compared to that Port Mackerel match is so many power claims. They've only got 2 right now on the map, one of them about to find its way into the barrier. How much more follow-up will there be? Pineapple has a lot of clams here as well. Looks like a few are coming in from the bottom, and it is going to be enough for them to be able to take the lead. Just not enough members in defensive positions for La France, and it's just one moment is all it takes, one push in order to find these clams in the basket. But with 45 seconds left, there's still a potential for a response here out of La France. We've seen them get small little pushes before, and all they really need is a power clam and some change. So definitely doable if you're that big.
Yeah, difficult there to lose your Foil Squeezer as you don't have those bubbles online. The only thing with 30 seconds left that they have to push with is these Penta missiles, which are going to come up now. Again, like you said, the Toxic Mist oppressive, but not as oppressive when you're being backed into your spawn. Finally, La France able to find a bit of ground here, up to 22 clams in total, but lots of members sharking around looking for that first pick. We are going to see both the Inkjet, Booyah Bomb, and Bubble Blower committed here, so they're going to jump in, but they're not going to be able to throw the Power Clam. Pineapple helping to shut things down, and with just 4 clams online, they are going to be able to break the barricade, forcing us into overtime. 2 lone bubbles floating around helplessly in mid, but the defense of 313 is going to hold strong, and 313 going to be able to avoid the reverse sweep and will take this set over La France.
Whew. Probably a sigh of relief if you are the storied players on 313 there. Not faltering this early on. But yeah, I mean, one of the things about that last push from the France, you can tell a lot of it was made out of desperation, right? They're like, okay, we're running out of time. We have to be able to find this. We have to be able to find this jump. And they just couldn't quite put all the pieces together. And I think that's one of the interesting things about something like that Jet Squelcher, right? That Jet Squelcher, aside from the 10 missiles, is incredibly useful as a defensive weapon. You saw that Toxic Mist be incredibly useful. And of course, the long range helping cover in very specific areas of the map. But when you're trying to push forward, that Jet Squelcher is not going to be able to do good of a job of locking down like the entire enemy side, no matter where they could be potentially standing to set up their defenses. And so, you know, you saw that Jet Squelcher wasn't really much of the game, was kind of the one sitting with the power clam before coming back in to move on forward. And so, you know, it's just one of the things to think about here when we're starting to build those compositions. Maybe that's something we'll take a look at in some future sets of the day, is how things like this Jet Squelcher that we've seen even in the West, you know, be played quite considerably, especially that Vanilla Jet, right, recently. How is that actually going to play into these compositions, and what impact is that going to have actually on the map? So interesting stuff, and a lot more to cover for the rest of our day.
Yeah, very good points. And to riff off of, you know, what you mentioned about the Jet Squelcher, you know, the role of Anchor, you know, you in these sort of objective-based situations, you really want to have that roll down and really be aware and cognizant of when the best time is to jump in. But when there's such little time left, there's an element of predictability, especially when you have to go a certain way for the most part in order to get to where you need to dunk the power clam and where you need to break that barricade. So for 313, you know, all they need to do, especially if they get an early pick, is just lock down that area with something like a bomb, a special, and we saw some of those. Maybe even for La France, the specials coming out too early. We saw 3 specials being popped with about 20, 30 seconds left and not really much coming out of it. So overcommitting too early when they had technically that bit of overtime. You know, sometimes Clamblitz can have some of the longest overtimes of any mode. It really lends itself to, did they perhaps try their luck a bit too early or not get the pick that they wanted before they were able to push forward? And so that's something that we're going to be looking for as we move on to our next match, which I believe is going to be Zootopia versus Penguin. And so again, we mentioned that the structure of this tournament is that there are 5 groups. 3 of those groups have 4 teams. 2 of those groups, including the one we just saw, Group D, have 3. And the top 2 teams from each should move on to the bracket stage. So it's going to be really interesting here to see Zootopia versus Penguin. On Zootopia, for the players, we have Ryunosuke, we have Yucho, we have Himemari, and we have Kotan. And then for Penguin, we have a couple of very, very highly rated ranked players, including Reimaru and Naigora, who have both accomplished the insane feat of 3,000 XP, and joining them is Sugi and Maple. So quite a few substantial names on these rosters.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Naigora in action in some of our tournaments even, right? Think about 20XX. I remember, you know, Naigora was actually going off there quite a bit. So should be fun to see here as well. We're hitting a lot of these higher level teams in the group stage. So you get to see them a little bit on stream, which is fantastic here. But hope you all are enjoying it. In case if you are just joining us, I imagine we're getting a lot of people that are just waking up, seeing IPL live and like, hey, what's going on here? I didn't realize this was happening. You're watching the Clam World Cup. This is a Japanese hosted tournament that we're just doing the English broadcast for today. Of course, you could have signed up, I suppose, if you really wanted to, but you know, a little late for that at this point. But nonetheless, for those of you, a little bit of background and context here. I think the actual person, one of the main people in charge of this, you know, kind of like their baby, is actually Ridu. If any of you remember from Testa back in the Inkstorm 4 days, made a push into the final stages of that bracket. A little bit of Splatoon history for you there. One of the higher level players, especially one that was, you know, attempting to bridge the 2 scenes between the Japanese and the Western community. So good to see him still around. Good to see him still doing stuff. I think he's actually commentating on the Japanese broadcast right now. So nice to see familiar names all around, of course, when you're working events like this.
Yeah, there's been a great amount of
Zach,
support. Oh, of course I do. Yeah, Inkstorm 4. I love the Inkstorm days. I love the like the Flash Inkstorm series, and having the support and having Japanese teams show up and really allow the Western scene to test their mettle against some of Japan's best is a rare but welcome opportunity, and something that, as hopefully we see more integration between the regions as we go into Splat 3, is something that I would love to see more of, because there are always, from what I see, Western teams basically chomping at the bit for more and higher levels of competition. So hopefully that will be a built-in and integrated way for that to happen. Also, a big shout out to the social team for the Clam World Cup. You can follow them on Twitter at Clam World Cup, and they have posted what the schedules will be for both the Japanese and English broadcasts and the links for those. The Japanese broadcast being hosted on YouTube, and of course, our English broadcast right here with the great folks at IPL Splatoon. If you're following along with the groups/bracket, we are going over to Group A. And the format for the tournament basically is that we just saw 1 versus 2 and 3 versus 4 in the first round. Second round is 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 4. And the third game is 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3. Again, with the ideology that the top 2 teams will be moving on to a bracket stage where we will start best of 3, ending up with best of 5 in semis and finals. So lots to look forward to. I'm pretty sure that our cast is going to focus on a lot of high-level players, both from a tournament perspective and also from ranked. That is such an improbable, and for my skill level especially, just a mind-blowing feat of reaching 3,000 XP in ranked play.
Yeah, absolutely. Proof as one, I believe only one Western player, maybe 2 Western players have actually ever done that. It's a grind. I imagine, especially for something like Clam Blitz. I don't actually know what modes they got 3K on, but I imagine something like Clam Blitz, especially with imagine getting a rotation where it's like Fort Mackerel, Arowana Mall this month, and you're like, well, I've got to play if I want to try to get up to 3K. I don't know. I think y'all need to, hopefully you've got some pretty good therapists if you're attempting that challenge, but hey, maybe that's just me. I guess people enjoy playing this game. I just can't imagine you're going to enjoy playing it that much. Oh, what do I know? Not
to speak too much on speculation. I don't even know if Clam Blitz will be coming back to Splat 3. That's right. Reason enough to say, if you're doing it now, you are really championing through it.
That's the other thing that's crazy to me. Y'all, we don't even know if Splat Zones is in Splatoon 3. We have gotten no confirmation that Splat Zones is in the game. Now, would it be incredibly unlikely for Splat Zones to not be in the game? Yeah, it should be in the game, right? But hey, we don't actually know is the main point. Maybe they're going to pull a Splatoon 1 on us and make us play Turf War for 3 months before actually unlocking private battles. Who knows?
Yeah, until anything is confirmed, it is fun and also slightly terrifying to make these predictions and assumptions about the game. I would be quite scared of playing Turf War if all of the very talented players who I'm sure will be playing on day 1 were relegated to that mode. So I'm sure there will be an extent of that, of course, if there's some sort of leveling system, of course, where you have to unlock ranked. And to your point, of course, the maps terrify me for this month, especially things like Skipper and Port and Gobi. So it looks like we're getting our lobby set up here. Again, we are going to be looking at Zootopia versus Penguin. This is from Group A. Not sure what we're going to start with in terms of our first map. We have, of course, a 1 in 8 chance of getting it right. Just for posterity purposes, I'm going to pick Arowana. K-Bot, any predictions?
I don't have any predictions. You're right.
Hey, wow. What did I tell you? 1 in 8 chance. So, Arowana Mall, you sort of have a little bit of reminiscence from Port, where you have this very thin but quite lengthy map that is kind of difficult to get back into in terms of team fights when you go down. So you're really, again, going to have to be relying on that stealth jump. And of course, with the amount of bubbles that we saw being used in that last mode, if you want to run something like Object Shredder on your gear, that could be quite helpful. Otherwise, you may need to bring out the big boy toys in terms of chargers or splatlings, something with a good amount of range, because the overlook, sort of the grading, doesn't really allow you to see all that much. You can get into mid with something, with a moderate amount of range, but if you want to make it to the opposing overlook, you're really going to have to bring in something like an E-liter or a heavy duty splatling like a Hydra.
Yeah, and, I think we'll probably see a lot of longer range things. I imagine the Jet Squelcher ain't going to go anywhere, folks. It's one of the weapons. Everyone says 10 missiles are incredibly annoying to play up against, and so that's one of the things, we'll see that V-Jet come out. Potentially even see that custom Jet Squelcher come out. Stingray sometimes can even still nowadays be incredibly useful for those, being able to dislodge one or two members as opposed to the entire enemy team. So we'll just have to wait and see what exactly comes out of these two players. But as you mentioned, mentioning the long range, mentioning the splatlings here might be what we see Nagora on, but only time will tell, as now we're loading right on into this for game one. And actually, I see a roller and an Octobrush. Interesting here, especially on Arowana Ball.
Yeah, so we do end up seeing that Hydra Splatling coming out, and it is going to be giving them a good amount of range. That Kensa Dynamo Roller, super interesting choice here, as well as the Octobrush, but of course some staples as well. We have the Foil Squeezer, we have the return of the K52, and on the opposite side of things, a custom Dually Squelcher, which is the bane of some folks' existences with its ability to roll around the map. However, not a problem, as it gets immediately taken down, and unfortunately it looks like we have a bit of a lost connection. Not sure if that was for the entirety of the game or if that was just for the spectator cam. Hopefully we can return back, but that does give us a built-in opportunity to talk about some of these weapons a bit more.
I don't even know where to start. Of course, probably should have anticipated something like the Heavy Deco with those bubbles coming out, right? That's where your bubbles are on that composition. Having those at your disposal is going to be incredibly useful, and we've seen them used in a variety of different ways in order to go through with that. But in addition, the Octobrush can probably try to cause a little bit of havoc. I don't know how much havoc it's going to cause on something like Arowana Mall, though. There's not a lot of room for that Octobrush to run around, sneak up from behind, and surprise, So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that comes into things. But of course, a lot of the tried and true stuff we do see coming back here as well. So it seems as though it's going to be actually, we're trying to figure out still if it's a spectator DC. Shoutouts to Inkfair, of course, running the stream today, and Tic Tac, who has been helping out translating, getting us all set up and ready to go. Looks like it was a lobby DC, so it was not just on our end. So we'll be able to catch this from potentially. Actually, I don't want to say anything because I don't know the DC rules of this tournament. I can't read Japanese. That's my excuse for not reading the rules this time. By the way, this is your PSA reminder. Hey, that tournament that you signed up for that you haven't read the rules yet? Yeah, do that, please, just for the TO's sake. That'd be nice.
If you've never met K-Bot, he's a TO. Or was a TO?
Was. I'm retired from that now. So
never can truly escape, can you? Never can truly get out of it.
Kraken was about to tweet yesterday about this stream. He wanted to call me retired in the tweet. And I was like, all right, easy there. I'm not retired from commentary. I'm just retired from being a TO, okay? You're allowed to call me retired TO, and you're allowed to point and laugh. Yeah. So anyway, just do your TOs a solid. Read the rules. This is your occasional PSA. Read the rules. It's useful.
It's like that one Shrek movie where the kid is like, do the roar, but instead it's K-Bot going, read the rules. Read the rules. But again, I mean, going back to the weapons, I really like the idea of the Kensa Dynamo Roller, because you have the sprinkler. It gives you a bit of built-in painting, and there are some interesting places that you can put the sprinkler where it may not be as easily discovered. And the Booyah Bomb, of course, we've seen the success of the Booyah Bomb. It allows you to take some specials, and it gives you, an area that you can sort of build a push in. So there's the middle of the map is quite small, so a Booyah Bomb pretty well covers that up if you're trying to get control back. And I believe it has a relatively low special cost to build of 180. Then you go over to the custom dually squelchers. Inkstorm, very interesting and not too oft seen special. Pretty substantial to build in terms of the ink required, but it's not really about the special as much. If you wanted to, you could go with the main dually squelchers, which have the 10 missiles, but I believe, because of the, straightforwardness of this map, it allows you to have, sort of a pretty well indicated path of where that Inkstorm might go. And of course, the built-in maneuverability that a custom dually squelcher provides. And then the K52 seems like a no-brainer. You have, again, at the top left and right sides of these maps, these thin hallways where a splash wall fits quite perfectly. The spot where you peek out of those hallways, great opportunity for you to get some paint on the maps. K52, of course, not always a designated painting weapon, but gives you a chance to snipe, for lack of a better word, anybody who happens to be hanging around in mid a little too close and can't hit you behind that splash wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, looks like, give you a little bit of an update on things. Tic-Tac in the chat we're using right now typed in all caps. I didn't translate the DC rules because I thought there was going to be none. So that's called Murphy's Law right there, folks. There's your Murphy's Law for the morning. It appears as though there's a no tolerance policy, so we'll be hopping into game 2 for this next one. That loss will be attributed to Zootopia. So Penguin, the team with Roimaru and Nagora, is up 1-0. And now we're heading back to Inkblot Art Academy here, where I imagine a lot of those weapons actually might even make a little bit more sense, right? Dynamo Roller is going to have a handful of opportunities for purchase and able to, see a lot of the map, get a lot of ink down in a short amount of time. Potentially things like that Octobrush can be incredibly annoying if used quite well. And so we'll have to see exactly what these players opt for as we load into this one.
Yeah, that was a weapon I didn't really get to talk about, the Octobrush Nouveau. The Beacon, again, not really something you see that often in high-level play, but it gives you some opportunities to jump in if you place them correctly, or even just as a bit of a distraction, although Object Shredder will, take those down quite handily. In terms of the weapons that we're seeing, we are going to be seeing an Octobrush variant coming back out. It is going to be, however, the Inkjet one, which, again, a pretty good pick here for a map like Inkblot Art Academy, and we are going to be seeing a Blaster come out, which will have both Ninja Squid and Stealth Jump, so really playing the sharking game for that sort of shorter range Slayer weapon.
I know Redo is running this tournament, but was this a Splatoon 1 tournament? We are seeing a lot of Blaster State, especially you mentioned QR Stealth Jump coming in on that as well. But of course, we're playing Clam Blitz here. No chain jumps to the tower or any of those kinds of shenanigans, as it looks like we're already seeing Penguin build up quite a considerable lead in terms of clams and in terms of map control. And they're able to find the first few clams in the basket. Looks like Rimaru is trying to keep up the presence just a little bit, but it's not going to buy enough time. Oh, actually, no, just in the nick of time, another couple clams coming in the basket. And these staggers coming in here is exactly what you want to see from a team like Penguin. They're able to just follow up, able to have enough of a presence underneath that barrier to make sure that they weren't completely overrun immediately, and they're still buying time for even more players to come back in. Unfortunately, it's Octobrush going down, but already down to the 21-point push, eating off an entire minute of the clock. Fantastic opening push for Penguin.
Yeah, the savior here for Zootopia was you on that foil squeezer, just barely able to stay alive, ducking those missiles while walking on that tarp and able to build up the bubbles that were keeping the rest of their team from being splatted from coming off spawn, and it was the Blaster that really killed off and splatted the remainder of the teammates for Penguin. But that is a sizable lead and something that you don't want to contend with. However, in theory, there's plenty of time here. However, just one push on the side of Penguin could really make Zootopia rue the day that they lost to Game 2 at DC here. We have Reimaru coming out with a personal fan favorite of the Western scene, which is the Neo Splash-O-Matic. The splashdown coming out, and they're not going to be able to get it off here. And that is one of the dangers of splashdown, is that unlike other specials, it is quite easy to take out in the air. The foil squeezer losing that 1v1, and we're seeing a bit more of a stalemate, which I have to say is likely in favor of Penguin at this point.
More time Penguin can buy off of the clock, the better. I just want to talk about that for a second, though. That Jet Squads were able to pick up one, challenging the bubbles, then able to challenge the splashdown. You've got to be feeling pretty confident about yourself to be dropping down on top of that splashdown. But hey, able to take care of business here for this Penguin squad, and they're starting to push yet again with this inkjet coming out. It's going to allow the window of opportunity for that Just Vulture to charge on forward, and now we'll have to see what more follow-up can come of this, as well as there are still plenty of clams in the control here. You see this Octobrush finally able to land back down off of that. They're almost through this penalty here, and we're already seeing Bats control getting taken care of. Romario and Nagora continuing to push on forward here, trying to keep up that presence and allow a little bit more time for the rest of these members to come back in with a few more clams, and it looks like just that they're able to do. Coming in all over the place, down to 4 now, but they have to watch their backs here. Just one more clam in could mean certain doom, and it looks like it's going to be stopped here. Nagora, though, keeping alive in these bubbles, forcing these members back. No, you're not allowed to take mid-control back quite just yet, and 0 clams on the board right now in the possession of this Zootopia squad. Things are looking dire for them.
That is a deadly duo if I've ever seen one. Nagora and Reimaru really holding things up on their opponent's plat here. I was going to say that Yu was the showstopper. They're able to play some defense, but there was one team member that actually was able to get behind them and score some of those remaining points and get it down to 4. And they've already forced another 3-down situation. That's where the strength of that Octobrush comes in handy. As they're trying to jump down, they have no choice but to jump into the arms of the waiting Octobrush, swinging away freely. And that's going to be a relatively free win for Penguin.
Penguin able to take care of business there. You know, they might have gotten a free game 1, but they definitely showed their mettle here in game 2. Well done, and hats off to all of them. Just the discipline in positioning that they have at their disposal, right? No matter the other thing was the game plan looked different between the 2 major pushes that we saw, right? One of them, there were 2 players taking control of bats. In another case, they were just kind of sitting underneath that barrier, able to provide enough room, but keeping their distance from their opponents, throwing burst bombs and things like that to continue chipping away, making their opponents not feel quite comfortable in their defensive position, so they can't try to spot out where those next few incoming clams are coming from. Textbook play coming in to allow these pushes to continue to be maintained and allow for a lot more of these clams to find the basket.
Yeah, for a weapon like the Blaster, which of course doesn't have a painting sub either, you're really going to need to make a lot of room for it in order for it to do what it does best, especially with the build that we saw coming out with it. Of course, Ninja Squid relying on having a lot of ink control to be able to maneuver around and take some free kills from their backline in theory, or from where they're not expecting to be hit. But with folks like Nagohara and the plat there, it is really, really difficult for you to get any maneuverability, especially as you are being onset by those 2 3K XP players, Reimaru and Nagora. So a nice win there from Penguin that is showing how difficult of a team they are going to be to beat, as they will potentially move on to the bracket stages. We'll have to see how the rest of the tournament works out for them. However, we are going to be moving to, I believe, our 3rd and final group stage match on stream, which will be in Group C, one of our groups that does have 4 teams, and that will be between Asari-chan or Clam-chan and Shijimi Limited or Clam Company. So some interesting players, especially on the side of Asari-chan. Cha-Cha and Chikashi are going to be some notable names here. Chikashi, a Tent player, Tent Umbrella, and Cha-Cha, another pretty notable Japanese player. So not sure what to expect from these teams. We've seen a lot of high-level play so far, and some consistencies in terms of what weapons and specials they've been picking. So things like the NZAP 85 and of course that foil squeezer, along with some Western favorites like the Neo Splash-O-Matic, which we saw in that last game, and the K52.
If you enjoyed the Octobrush last game, you'll probably enjoy the Inkbrush this game. Cha-Cha, I believe, assuming this is the same player that I'm thinking of, you might remember from Inkstorm 8, able to go all of the way with Zaragan and Shimitan. brush player able to take care of business there. So incredibly high level play we'll be able to see, and a little bit more brush for those of you taking notes at home. Want to try to apply this to your own game. So we'll have to see exactly what comes out here, of course. We'll be getting into the match, I believe, momentarily. It looks like all the players are in our lobby. So should be a good one here for you all to, see exactly how some more of these players are playing. That's one of the cool things about the group stage, seeing all of the different strategies that are employed to, a mode that still, I would argue, hasn't entirely been solved by a good portion of the player base, in Clams here.
No, it remains very much an enigma. And, kind of to riff off your point, 2 of the 3 variants especially, I think, would play quite well for Clamblitz. You have the Inkbrush Nouveau, which has the Baller, which, of course, not so much a favored strategy in Japan, but something that can still very much work, as we see Port Mackerel is going to be the map that we're going through. Some nice thin hallways there for the Baller to sort of motor through and maybe pick an unsuspecting player, but more likely just getting some time for the rest of their team to jump in. Or the Permanent Inkbrush, which, again, is a substitute for a weapon that can farm armor, and doing so a bit nicely here with the Sprinkler. There are some great, those low sort of boxes that have the uninkable surfaces, great areas for Sprinklers to sit so that they're a bit difficult to take out, and they get you some ink that you need to build up that 180 ink armor there. That 180 being the amount of ink that you need to build it up. So it looks like we're going to see, again, another map that has, pretty thin hallways, as I mentioned, something that is not too terribly far away from your spawn. You just pretty much have a straight path to go down, but that can be a double-edged sword if the team that is attempting to score on you is really holding their own and not letting the area around the basket go. You have a couple of options, but they're predictable options in terms of getting back into the fight. So really will test the mettle of these teams to see how well they can come back from a 2 or 3 down situation and shut down an enemy push.
And I think, to your point here, especially talking about Port Mackerel, it'll be interesting for the Asari-chan composition. They've got an Inkbrush that wants to play really fast, really aggressive in their opponent's face all of the time. And you've got Chikasi on this Tenebrella as well, slowly taking control of these hallways, probably wants to get paired with someone on that push as well. So to see that dynamic and to see what exactly this team is going to be able to throw at them will be incredibly interesting overall. Looks like Tenebrella's matched on either side of the map. You see Asari-chan in blue and Clam Company. I'll just call them Clam Company in yellow here. But these Tenebrellas are going to be what you're looking out for as these hallways and narrow corridors are fought over between both these squads.
Yeah, I think actually we might have Shijimi Limited in yellow and the Asari-chan in blue. We'll have to get some confirmation on that. But we are going to see, again, some weapons that we predicted and some that we didn't. The 52 Deco, not really the preferred variant of the 52, but still a very strong main weapon as we see that first break there by Cha-Cha. So this, again, is going to be the Inkbrush that we were predicting coming out from Asari-chan in blue here. And they are going to be using the Stingray, something that you said, not really a popular choice, but when you have a map like this, it can be quite devastating. And they are going to find a pick on the 52. They're going to use it with the 52 Deco, and the ability to get around the map with this weapon is already paying dividends, but they don't really have to. That's the benefit of the Stingray, is you can sort of hang back, defend your zone, build up your special, and still have an effect when your team is making a push.
I mean, you can imagine, right, being able to take control of one quarter with the Stingray and one quarter with the Tenebrella. We're already seeing that Tenebrella put in quite a bit of work here as well for this Clam Company, for this Asari-chan squad. And they're already starting to get up quite the Clam push here, as now it's another 3-down situation for their opponents, giving another opportunity for more Clams to go back and get connected, try to follow a few more of these in, trying to get them in as soon as possible to avoid getting timed out. But now coming up from behind are these members trying to find the defensive, and they're able to find the white, be able to find this control underneath the barrier. But already down to this 15-point mark, it is a little dangerous here.
Yeah, Shijimi trying to play defense there. They do find the mid-map control, and I'm really interested to see how the Tenta Camo Umbrella really matches up against the base Tentabrella model. The Ultra Stamp is a pretty interesting and hard-hitting special through these corridors, really fast movement speed as well, as we see that 52 get a pick here. This is going to be the Kensum variant, and we're seeing similar strategies, just different options from the teams coming out in terms of their weapons and picking variants of those weapons. We see 2-down situation on the side of Shijimi once again, so it's going to be Asari-chan getting a huge push here and stopping what could have been a big counter push on the side of Shijimi Limited. They lose out on, I think, a couple of power clams and only lose out on their permanent ink brush, or their ink brush Nouveau rather. So good start here, and I think both teams really have a great idea of how this map works and are trading mid because of it.
Good work by Cha-Cha defending that last push. Able to come in from behind, flanking around your opponents and able to take care of that. Now you've got two different angles that you're trying to fight people from. Typically spells disaster. And so well done here. Cha-Cha able to come in and do a little bit of preventing this push on the behalf of Asari-chan. But now we'll have to see what the response is. Can Asari-chan start to push this on forward? You see bubbles coming out here along with this 10 umbrella canopy. The power clam's going forward, and it is going to be able to get picked up and taken back into this map. You see Chikashi here on this 10 umbrella able to continue to put in work. This 10 umbrella loves this spot, continuing to push back these members and making sure that they don't have a clear access to this barrier. But it looks like this barrier is probably going to go back up unless Cha-Cha could opt for allow for a jump in here or something of that nature. Is able to find one for the road, nonetheless, before getting taken out. Well done here. Able to keep up that pressure, whittle down that penalty a little bit. Just remind your opponents, hey, by the way, you still got to be afraid of us here. But we'll see what the response is here from Shimji as they're already starting to jump in. Here it comes. Splash Wall gets thrown out. There is the power clam, but where is the follow-up? There's hardly anyone else around. Only two members around this barrier. The rest of the members are back there. They just cannot quite seem to get through this sea of blue ink in front of them, and they will all fall in a staggered fashion. 43 seconds left to go, and things are not looking great for Clam Company.
Yeah, I think your largest point there is where is the follow-through? We saw 3 specials come out. I saw 10 missiles, a Stingray, and a Booyah Bomb all come out and basically hit no one. And that is going to be basically the end of the game here for Clam Company, as they are able to shut down in pretty decisive fashion Shijimi Limited. That is such a strong composition. And again, they're essentially mirrors of each other. In terms of, we have one Tenta, we have one 52, and there is just a stronger strategy on the side of Clam Company using their Stingrays more aggressively. We saw 7 used to, I believe, just 4 or 5 on the side of Shijimi Limited. That in part comes from the amount of time that they are actually alive and building up their special, but it also comes from the amount at which the Stingray player is keeping safe. And the same goes for, you know, who are you targeting with your Tenta missiles? Who are you able to hit with your Booyah Bomb? Is it enough to allow your team to break the barricade and also have some follow-through? We saw, in terms of Shijimi Limited, some good points playing some pretty good defense, but their ability to win their 1v1s, especially against a difficult player to go up against like Cha-Cha on that ink brush, is such a difficult thing to come back from when, you know, a player like that is expecting to go down and sort of trade in those 1v1s often, and they're back in the fight a lot quicker than the person that they're taking out. So difficult to contend with as we potentially here move on to Erewhon Amal.
That's the entire point, right? Of something like that brush. It wants to be in your face. It wants to be aggressive. And even if it gets a trade, that's okay, right? The entire point of the brush is like, hey, I'm here. Pay attention to me. Don't bother paying attention to the 10 umbrella that's pushing with the teammate that has 2 power clams that are about to throw in the basket. Look at me. Look at me. I'm over here on the other side of the map, right? That's exactly what that brush is trying to do. And that's, you know, one of the things that Cha-Cha does quite well. Even on the defensive side, right? I complimented that mid-game. Able to come up from behind, cause a little bit of chaos, is exactly what that brush wants to do. And to your point, able to run right back into the thick of things, pop that baller for a little bit of extra shield, a little bit of extra survivability as well. And you've got a weapon that in the right hands can be quite devastating and change the pace of the game. Other thing I want to comment on, if you go back and you look at the KAs in that last game, they're actually pretty even. You know, these teams are actually quite even, splat for splat. But at the end of the day, it's going to be all about how you're using those and how you're building up your clam advantage in order to actually just secure some points on the board. Now, opting for the foil squeezer on this other side, that vanilla tent coming out here as well. So double bubble on the side of Asari-chan. Should be interesting to see how this one comes to fruition here on a map that we didn't get to commentate last round, Arowana.
It's not about who you splat, it's about how you splat. And I was going to say that the Tent Umbrella is pretty well favored on a map like this and is one of the better Squid Beacon maps with these hallways that are not inaccessible, but just sort of an annoyance to get to, as you have to have mid control, you have to be able to go up the walls, and you have to be not doing anything else, namely being in a team fight. So we are going to be seeing Shijimi Limited here trying to push forward here, using that K52 to get a pick here on Chikashi, and hopefully they can use that to build up their specials, because I can see they're all quite close. They haven't quite made it there, but they are getting sharked around from behind, as we see this Ink Rush, or the Foil Squeezer rather, really doing what it does best, just finding at that optimal range the pick. And with a 3v3 situation, we are going to see the first barrier getting broken, a bubble blower and a Booyah Bomb coming out one per side, as the Stingray actually helping a little bit to try and pop those bubbles. Shijimi Limited getting up to 62, now 59, and as they deposit a few of their power clams, they are going to lose one member, two members, but they have a couple still sharking around. I'm not sure if they have the clams to do it. In fact, it shows 0, but if they can find even 1, and unfortunately they just don't have the time to. Still a pretty decent comeback first push here on the side of Shijimi.
Well done. And the other thing is, right at the last possible moment, when it was like, all right, our opponents are approaching, we don't have any clams, they pulled back. They're able to mostly maintain mid control, and it's exactly what's winning them this fight here in this zone area. You see, they're just being able to keep their presence known, make sure they're spotting out where their opponents are, and their opponents have to approach them through all of this green ink that you see laid out in front of them. So even if they don't have a ton of clams for now, they're going to exhaust some specials on the opponent's side. Now popping this Ink Armor, trying to clear things out just a little bit more. Really want to take care of this Tent Umbrella on this side, and now starting to get a little bit overwhelmed. Oh, actually able to pick up one. We'll see if any others can go down, as that Stingray all the way from the backside, trying to provide a little bit more of a presence here on this zone. But alas, you know, things are just kind of evening out in mid here, as these teams still trying to feel for one another. And that's one of the things with the tight corridors around here, you're gonna have to run through your opponents in order to get to this barrier.
Yeah, Cha-Cha was showing a masterclass there with that Ink Rush and not overcommitting. It can be very difficult with a short-range weapon to get in too deep without realizing it, and by the time you do, it's too late and you're picked off. But even using that baller and then just able to get back out with the nice maneuverability and the walk/run speed that you have with a weapon like that shows a true mastery of that weapon. Both sides are going to have that bubble blower at the ready, as both Tent Umbrellas are trying to make a push forward. Shijimi going to be popping theirs, and they're going to have a couple members jump their way into the hallway. Will it be enough, and will they be able to get the actual power clam, because both teams are sitting just at the cusp at 9 instead of 10, so they're really just using it to make sure they have control of this hallway. If they can find a pick and a clam, it'll serve them well. But as we enter the minute-and-a-half space here, they are losing their first team member, so they commit the bubble, they don't get much out of it. Now they have to contend with Stingray, and as well the second bubble from the Foil Squeezer and the baller, but unfortunately for them, the baller is going to go down. So as Asari-chan wanted to make a push here, it looks like both teams are still in this stalemate and hoping for the right amount of picks, as we see smartly them jump away from this Stingray.
One of the things here that Tent Umbrella is like, come on, y'all, where are the clams? Where are the clams? Unfortunately, the clams are all over this map right now, and they are not in mid. These players have been sitting on top of mid for so long, haven't been exploring a lot of the other, aspects of this map, where perhaps, on your own spawn side, you might even see a few more clams come to life. But nonetheless, 43 seconds here left to go. Shijimi wants to keep this one right here, wants to be able to force this one to a game 3, but we'll see what Asari-chan can do. They already have that Tent Umbrella with those bubbles at the ready here, probably going to look to take over a corridor once more, but they're not able to have a lot of map control here, and now trying to challenge right in this Kenza 52, able to find a double here, and now make it a triple 3-down situation, and that is going to seal the deal here. We are heading to yet another game 3. Almost certainly, probably not going to see too much else here. I suppose there's still a power clam, so overtime will be forced. And with the 2-down situation, I suppose there's still a chance. Maybe I shouldn't speak too soon here, Zach.
IU, the catalyst, trying to send their team to a game 3, but it may not be, as their overtime is still ticking down. Again, this overtime can be one of the longest of any Splatoon mode, and as you were talking about, where are the clams? Well, they finally had some. They ended up losing their power clam. It's quickly picked back up, and it looked like they had a jump, but they just run out of time. And as you mentioned, we could have had this one end from those late picks that Asari-chan were able to find after the triple kill from IU. But IU, that 3-down situation and the comeback following it, able to be enough. And you can see IU top fragging there with that K52 and 18 KA to help their team stay alive.
18. That is brutal on that weapon, and only 2 Booyah bombs to boot means that they are a lot of times getting a handful of trades maybe, but they weren't using that Booyah bomb as like a panic button in most cases, right? They were just maybe throwing that out, helping that push just a little bit more, but nonetheless, you know, coming out with that 18, incredibly strong here, and a large part of what that was to send Shijimi to this game 3. But you know, we'll have to see what the responses are here as we head to Piranha Pit next, another map that these Tenebrellas are going to love.
Yeah, Piranha Pit, a gargantuan map, and one that plays a little bit differently, you know, depending on the mode. It's such an interesting concept, and one that I love about some of these maps in Splatoon is their ability to change based on what mode you're playing. And so for Clam Blitz, you're going to be playing it a bit more horizontally, I think, than you would vertically, if that makes any sense. And so mid control is going to be even more important. You know, you have those far extremes sort of taken away from you on the left and right hand side, and you know, one of the defining features of this map being the sort of escalators, for lack of a better word, those platforms, is one of the few areas that you really have to play around. So it's going to be interesting to see what weapons they bring out, if they bring anything longer range, especially if Asari-chan can contend with this K52, because there's no ink armor to supplement your KA to get your assist count built up. It really is just the pure power of a weapon that can two-shot with a little bit of RNG. So we'll see what weapons they bring out here as we head in to our Game 3.
Game 3 now, Piranha Pit, map that many of you are likely quite familiar with. And as mentioned, you know, a lot of these weapons going to have a field day here. Even Cha-Cha on that brush quite a bit. A lot of open space for this brush to run around, but also a lot of open space for the brush to get caught out in. And you see this Stingray come out here again, likely going to be sitting over there and trying to just laser its way right through mid. We'll have to see how much of that is going to be useful, as you already see the Stingray coming out. And already, as well as Tenebrella for Shijimi, putting in a lot of pressure. Already has 8 clams at the ready. Might just need a few more and is able to find the first power clam in of this game. We'll have to see what else can come of this here as well.
Yeah, I want to call out at the very beginning of the game, we had Chikashi from Asari-chan, their 10th player, go all the way around, almost behind where the dunking point was, and tried to get a pick, and it did not pay off, and that allowed Shijimi Limited to get the first pick and are really devastating this basket with the amount of clams that they're able to find. They're having a much easier time of it, of actually finding the clams than they were on Arowana. On the side of Asari-chan, they're going to be using that Stingray to try and get that barricade back up, which they will, and they're going to have a lot of work left to do, plenty of time to do it, but that early flank not paying off. You have the ability to get to the back end part of the map with those ink rails, but if you're not able to find the pick, you leave your team in a man down situation, and also at a special deficiency, which really played against them.
Oh, trying to push again is Shijimi, but finally able to say no thank you is this custom jet player. And now Stingray coming out, going to force that brush to jump on away. And now we'll have to see what else comes of this. Cha-Cha going forward, able to find one power clam in the basket. Now going to pop this baller, trying to shove some of these members around here all the way down. Take it at 1v1 all the way down to the bottom side of this map. But now 2 down, make it a 3-down situation. Cha-Cha is going to fall as well. And Asari-chan not able to find the same success on that push. Just didn't quite have the same stability that Clam Company had on that first push.
Yeah, smart placement here of the ink mines. Again, we're watching the camo Tensorella, and they really try and not damage necessarily, but mark their opponents in mid with those ink mines. The Booyah Bomb going to come out as they have 22 clams, trying to get something going here. They are going to drop one as they do have their 10th player go down. The Stingray coming out again. This is where the horizontal aspect of the map comes out. They just send it over by their own basket and are able to find at least some hits that allow for a pick onto the 52 player. The bubble also coming out, trying to pop them to get a kill here on the Tenta. But of course, one of the main benefits of that tent is the ability to have a built-in shield and hide behind it, and that's exactly what they try to do. The K52 able to survive and get a pick, make it to their delayed. IU again, the star of the show here as they try and play that Slayer role, and have already built up a Booyah Bomb to try and push things forward. They break the barricade once again, trying to get through that penalty. One power claim would do it. It looks like they don't have that much. They're picking up a good amount, so if they can jump forward, this should allow them to try and help clear the rest of the game out.
Penalty is already down. Just 4 more clams need to find this barrier, but it looks like with some trades in mid, those 4 clams are not going to be arriving anytime soon unless they get a really lucky spawn. But it looks like it's too little too late, as now we see a double here picked up by this foil squeezer and starting to continue pushing forward here for Asari-chan. One of the things I'm kind of interested about here, neither team focusing very much on map control. You see very splotchy through mid. That's been that way for pretty much this entire match. Not many members of this team able to focus on map control, but now trades, middle of the map. Multiple members going down here on power clams for both sides. Looks like the Asari-chan one will be recovered, and a second one will not be. Actually, no, Cha-Cha able to come up with that one here as well. About 70 seconds left to go in this map. Asari-chan has to find a way to get on forward here, but the defenses are still holding for Shijimi. You see enough specials are coming out of them, and it's going to be another 2-9 situation. Cha-Cha trying to find something, trying to find a way to get back to this barrier, take care of a few of these members. It has to constantly be afraid of who's coming into spawn, and now that power clam's going down far away. All of those resources committed for the clam economy for Asari-chan now are going to be null and void with just 38 seconds left to go. They're struggling to find the push for clams, and now their opponents are going to try to make a push of their own.
Yeah, Cha-Cha played that so smartly, was dancing and diving around the tent, and the tent just ran out of space. Unfortunately, IU came by, some callouts likely happening that were able to allow for the pick even after the kill onto the tent for the paintbrush. And now that's a 2-down situation where they had 2 power clams before. Those 2 deaths in mid, those 2 splats are not going to allow them to have enough, I don't think, to build up for an overtime push. They're really going to have to get another pick here. They find one onto the K52, but they've already respawned. They don't have much to get. And with 7 clams at the toe, it's not going to be enough, and it's going to be Shijimi limited after losing game 1 with a strong comeback in game 2 and an emphatic win in game 3 to seal the reverse sweep.
Wow, well done here for Shijimi Limited, able to take care of business, and you see IU 16 on that map as well, popping out quite a bit of a presence on that Kensa 52 and largely able to shut things down. I think that's one of the interesting trends overall, especially on that map for these 10 Umbrella compositions, is that if you can get that 10 Umbrella in position and the 10 Umbrella knows what they're doing, they can sit there for what feels like days at a time. But the difficulty is actually making that push happen because that 10 Umbrella canopy moves so slow. You can't just like open things up, especially on the open map such as Piranha Pit, right? Port Mackerel, a little bit easier. Push on forward. You can't really get closed in on from a lot of different angles. Sure, you got to be paying attention, but in a lot of cases, it's these corridors that you're really trying to take control of. Whereas here, you can get dove on from any side, right? You've really got to be careful of that as you're trying to push on forward. If you can get underneath the barrier, that 10 Umbrella can sit there for so long. But that was one of the things that Asari-chan was having difficulty doing, was actually finding a way to get that 10 Umbrella there in order to let Cha-Cha continue to create chaos. I just don't think they had the ink coverage to be able to do that. But nonetheless, impressive stuff. And we are already heading into the bracket stages here of this, Zach. We are going to be seeing La France again versus Wadami? Your pronunciation is probably better than mine.
I think we'll go with Wataame or Cotton Candies.
Wataame.
We may defer to them by their English translation names, so we'll call them Cotton Candy versus La France. I think we can sum up K-Bot's points by saying, in the trading card game, they have a saying that every deck has an auto loss. In Splatoon, maybe it's every weapon has a fault or failing point, and for the Tenta, that might just be running out of space, which we saw in that last set. But we are going to be running in to see La France, a team which we have spectated before, versus Cotton Candy, and Cotton Candy is going to be made up of Kamuyamu, Butamiruku, Latte, and Bechu. So we are going to have Inkbot Art Academy once again, a map that we have thankfully spectated before today. Cotton Candy, you can see their clan tag denoted there with the C's in circles, the CC, so that should make it a bit easier for you to follow at home. But for Inkbot Art Academy, this is going to be one of those maps where a lot of weapons can play and have a good bit of success. Based on what we've seen so far, I would think some sort of armor farming weapon. It's probably going to be the NZAP 85, spoilers, some variant of 52 has been quite popular. I think for this map, maybe the K52 tends to be still your most successful variant, as I would think Booyah Bomb would play quite well on a relatively open map like Inkbot. You don't have too many obstacles to play around. And of course, some sort of longer range weapon. Maybe we see the Jet or a Splatling come out, but we're about to find out. Again, this will be a best of 3. Let's see what they've brought to the table.
Looking to be a lot of the same. We see a lot more Kensa 52s, but this time the Kensa Roller coming out here as well. Seeing a lot of these roller brush kinds of weapons here. And of course, that roller is going to love these ledges on Inkblot. If it can get in position, it will be incredibly annoying, whether that be approaching from mid or trying to lock out your opponents underneath this barrier. So we'll have to see exactly how this is going to play into things.
Yeah, the Kensa Splat Roller, you have the bubbles there. So again, this is a special that plays itself very well to the mode of Clam Blitz, which makes it so that we're seeing weapons that we haven't really seen that much in competitive play before. We see a Splat come out there against a member of Cotton Candy. They go into the Ink Jet immediately and go down, and if you use your special, you lose your special, as that's twice that the teams who have used their specials have had that player instantly pop. So defense being the name of the game so far. On the other side of things, we have that Jet Squelcher sort of staying back, trying to build up their special as well. A Bubble Blower at the ready here from the Foil Squeezer for Cotton Candy, as they have pretty good control here of mid, have one pick against the Tenatech, and are looking for more so that they can get more clams, because right now they are at the deficiency.
Yeah, at the deficiency right now, but even still, both these teams still trying to feel each other out. We are scoreless even still in this game. Feels very weird to be saying that. I feel like we've seen a lot more action so far here, but even still trying to build up enough of a presence to get this rolling. You see the Booyah Bomb up in the air for both of these squads now, trying to dislodge the opponents, and it looks like it's just going to throw at the feet of these Kensa 52s. They're just going to run away. Not much actually coming of this, but you see 10 missiles coming out here again, and you start to see a few more specials online. Potentially this Bubble Lure going to come in here off this Foil Squeezer player for Cotton Candy. Now we see another bubble approaching from this Kensa Roller, potentially opting in for some of these jumps, but where are the teammates? There they are. Finally, one goes in. There is the second power clam as well. A lot of clams just kind of sitting on top of the splat area, able to maybe be able to be picked up here and thrown in the barrier, but it looks like just not enough paint coverage, not enough members keeping presence underneath this barrier. And so a respectable down to 45 to kick things off here in this match. Kick things off, we're already halfway through.
Yeah, kicking things off, that was Latte on the Foil Squeezer and Bechu on the Kensa Roller, who both used their bubbles in time, basically, as we see Latte get a great pick there to start that off and really have great sustained pressure. I would think that was due to the slaying power of some of their other weapons. We haven't really talked about the Kensa Splatter Shot yet as well, which we're spectating here, and has that 10 missiles at the ready. The maneuverability of this weapon so strong, also very good at painting, and it can partner with this Kensa 52, who has the Booyah Bomb at the ready to start things off. 18 clams is what Cotton Candy has. They look like they're ready to make another push as the 10 missiles get fired off. The Tentatech is once again one of the first ones down on the side of La France. This is really devastating as we see a kill there coming out into the Booyah Bomb, into the bubbles, which break the penalty away from Cotton Candy, give them an extended lead, and they're under a power clam away despite being 2 down from ending this. They just need 3 more. Can anyone jump back? But they only have 1 alive who's in their own plat, and that is going to be a great push, but not the finality of this match.
how annoying were those bubbles? The roller just sits in there, allows for jumps to come in, and just keeps presence on mid. But now push of their own coming in here for this yellow squad. What will actually end up happening here is you see this foil squeezer trying to get a little bit more of a presence, trying to continue to maintain this map control. Some of the teammates are coming in from power clams. There is one. Now it's 16, just 3 clams away from tying. Need 4 to take the lead. 2 members up. Will this Katsuki be able to do it? No. Splat Roller comes in from the top and is going to send the barrier back up top. And a hefty 42-point penalty now applied here for La France to try to make this comeback. But they've got their work cut out for them as you see these members already taking position in this blue squad.
Yeah, this has to be the first time we've seen La France with a little bit of pep in their step. Normally, it's been the Tenatech who's gone down first. That time, it was the Tenatech who smartly stayed back after their team went down and allowed them to sort of regroup and also have their special, that Inkjet online with 30 seconds remaining here. Latte, though, with the bubbles at the ready. They are going to have the other bubbles with the Kensa Splat, but no, they're not going to be able to use them there. The Booyah Bomb, rather, not online as well because they're taken down in a Splash Wobby Splash Balls fight. And it's going to go to, it looks like, La France here, as unfortunately, they are not able to make any sort of substantial push. Both teams with a power clam or more at their disposal, but Cotton Candy loses most of theirs. They only have one special online, the Booyah Bomb coming out as we enter overtime. Looking for a pick here as they packed at least the foil squeezer into a corner, allowing them to get a pick, but they lose one team member as well. 20 clams online here for La France, who needs to make something happen. They lose their power clam and also lose 2 members. Do they even have anyone in a position to break this basket? It looks like no, as the foil squeezer is the last one alive. They can't keep things going, and that will be a saving grace victory here for Cotton Candy, who look to have that match under wraps. A last-minute push from La France, scaring them a little bit and maybe giving them a bit of momentum going into Game 2 here in this best of 3, but Cotton Candy really showing that consistency pays off.
And well done by them, especially there towards the end. You saw them. They were in mid, taking care of business, trying to keep that up for as much as possible, forcing their opponents to burn specials ahead of time, and then opted to retreat back to their plat, actually, to set up their defenses and make sure that their opponent, that they had the high ground in the main weapon fight. Able to take care of business there for Cotton Candy, and props off to them. Now, we are still in best of 3s, but we are in counterpicking territory. So La France was able to pick this map, and they are going to Arowana Mall this time around. Have to imagine it's probably something that the roller's going to be a little bit more annoyed by, right? With a few more curves around the map and even much steeper ledges that are going to be a little bit more difficult to be that much more annoying with.
Yeah, very interesting that we've spectated now, this being our 4th set of the day. Of course, there are many more happening off stream, but of the 8 maps available, there are 3 still that we have not yet seen on stream, that I believe being Muscle Forge Fitness, Sturgeon Shipyard, and Skipper Pavilion. We are going to yet another familiar face in Arowana Mall. Again, a lot of what has worked here so far may come back. Weapons with a beacon may come back into play. So we have, for example, Crack on Roller. I don't think we'll see Crack on Roller. We'll probably see something a bit more meta come into play here, but weapons that have a good bit of range and also some weapons that could do some sneaking around and sharking. We saw both teams really favor a Splattershot variant, whether it be the Kensa Splattershot or the Tentatech with the Inkjet. Inkjet, not a terrible choice here, although it is a longer map that you will have difficulty getting picks on, I would say, compared to Inkbot, although we might be
we're throwing all that out the window
here.
I think the teams forgot that they were able to counterpick. They thought it was still random. So we'll see what they actually pick.
Actual counterpick?
We'll know for sure when it's locked in.
Man.
Well, that's awkward. Oh well.
Oh well. Well, I mean, again, great to talk about a map that we've seen so far. Piranha Pit would also be, in fairness, a map that we've seen at least once today. So our streak of those last 3 maps being untouched for our English stream remains alive. Commentator curse likely incoming there, but as we reset the lobby here again, I talked about Cotton Candy having the momentum going forward and how La France, if that had been 100-0, they may, really be more down on themselves than I think they should be, because they have the makings here of a team that can come back and really put the pressure on Cotton Candy if they're able to get some of those first picks in the first push. So Piranha Pit is the confirmed map. We are going to be barring any sort of difficulties going into Game 2 on Piranha Pit. But again, will we see something like a quick early flank to the backside of the opposing team's area like we saw in the first time that we watched Piranha Pit on those ink rails? Will we see mostly team fights in mid, or even weapons that have things like Ink Mine that allow you to sort of have a better knowledge of where your team is? I think Tenna Missile serves that purpose pretty well, because it's a built-in way to not only see where the enemy team is, but to lock some of them down with some of those missiles. Or Stingray. Stingray could potentially work. The way the map is played is quite linear in that regard. So lots of things could work here in terms of specials and main weapons.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of things, as mentioned. Very open, right? Which can actually be both a blessing and a curse for a lot of different weapons, as we saw, especially thinking about the context of that ink brush. Probably not going to see the ink brush here. I don't think these players are quite as proficient in that way. But of course, we'll have to see what these players do off the put out. And to your point, shouldn't get yourself beat up over that last game. Splatoon often so much about your best performance rather than the sum of your cumulative performances. And there was really just that one 80-point push, to kind of seal that deal in that last map. But nonetheless, we're heading on into this one. We see the compositions come out here, and actually seeing that Tentabrella come out, but this time it's got a curling bomb launcher to boot, hopefully taking care of a lot of that mid presence with that special weapon for Cotton Candy.
Not only that, but as we just spectated there, the Nautilus 79 coming in with the suction bomb and the inkjet. So they are going to be taking the inkjet, going for a bit of an offensive edge there, as we are spectating, again, this K52, who has quite a couple of, both map control, the combination of that and getting that pick. Great start as we see the Nautilus setting up on what I believe was called the Nike back in the day, an overlook there, sniping overlook. It allows them to get some pressure, back them up, and now they've regained some map control because of that. So we have LaFrance here in green, we have Cotton Candy in purple, for those of you keeping track. And as they almost build up that inkjet, they are going to go down. So what is, I think, intended to be one of the anchor weapons, they of course have a custom jet, goes in and is not able to find the pick, and that could allow for Cotton Candy to be the first one to push forward.
We'll see here. Certainly looks like Cotton Candy is starting to build up that mid control, has plenty of clams at their disposal here as well, and now has a power clam built up. Question is, will they be able to find this Tenebrella getting in position? We saw how powerful this Tenebrella positioning could potentially be, and we have to imagine this curling bomb launcher going to be popped, and as I say it, there it is. Coming out here alongside with the Tenna missiles to try to push some of these members of LaFrance back, and now Bubbles coming out here as well, trying to get met with a few other specials, but finally this power clam is able to find the barrier. 3 down situation for LaFrance right now, and it's going to be an onslaught of clams coming into the barrier here for these members of Cotton Candy. Still maintaining a presence. This Nautilus trying to get in position. Cannot quite seem to spot anybody out. Now that Tenebrella providing yet another canopy. You see all of these shields coming in for Cotton Candy. There has to be something stronger than Cotton Candy. You can shoot right through Cotton Candy. You can't quite shoot through a bunch of splash walls and Tenebrella shields and the like here. All the way down to 14. That is an 86-point push to start things off. Impressive stuff here as they burn so much time off the clock.
Yeah, great analogy there. And if you want to pick the potentially most annoying variant of Tentabrella to get through, pick one that has not only the shield of the weapon itself, but also splash walls that you have to contend with. But in that last push, Latte really the catalyst there, getting the bubbles and getting the picks. And it was Butamiruku and Kamuyamu that were able to hang around, have the ability for their teammates to jump in, and is part of what allowed them to get so far in and allow them to get to 14. However, nice job there by Latte. Look at the survivability. They are going to end up going down, but they use the bubbles to help not only survive, but try and get a pick as well. But on the opposite side of things, we have Meta trying to stay alive. They have the inkjet at the ready. They're trying, all they need to do is take down this quote-unquote annoying Tentabrella, but they instead are not really able to do it. They opt to sort of back off a little bit. Instead, Cotton Candy is able to break the barricade, forcing them to come back. And what looked like a lot of momentum here for LaFrance turns into just a delay in sorts of Cotton Candy's own doing.
Yeah, Cotton Candy, I think the main point of that was just to take back control much of the middle of the map here, and that's exactly where you're seeing them holding now is around these conveyor belts. They're just not letting very much green ink get built up on this map whatsoever. And actually, Cotton Candy opting for another push of their own. This Tenebrola back in positioning, able to opt for this last jump. It's going to be Power Clam to seal the deal, and that is going to be Cotton Candy taking this set 2-0.
Yeah, the power of counterpicking there, and again, we mentioned consistency, the ability of Cotton Candy to play as a team, and the great callouts that they likely had. And as I mentioned, Latte, starting things off, ending up with the highest KA there of 10, not astronomical, but a great start. And then you have Kamayamu and Butamiruku being sort of the main follow-up there, and focusing heavily on the objective. And I think that is sometimes an area where teams can get lost, is if they think of it too much like a deathmatch, and they focus too much on the slaying aspect of the game, then they lose sight of things. And we actually saw that play out there, where La France was very much in playing with blinders on. And as they thought they had the opportunity to push forward there, Cotton Candy says, we're just going to break this. We're just going to stroll up with a power clam, and you're not really having all of your teammates or calling out that I'm here, so I'm just going to break this and stop your momentum, forcing them to jump back and have to deal with everything. And of course, La France doing a great job meta, especially hanging around, and the survivability that they had of just being an annoyance and keeping them from their own objective, which is a strategy in and of itself. So again, really, really strong comeback, forces a game 3, and this is a best of 3. Again, we're in the bracket stage single elimination, so this is a winner go home situation where both teams have looked strong. Now we have to see who has the best playouts here, as we are going to see La France get their opportunity now to counterpick.
I mean, they'll counterpick maybe in the next set. But like,
oh wait, oh shoot, my bad. I'm so sorry. I got it in my head that La France had won this first set, and Cotton Candy is too strong for me. Maybe I had some Cotton Candy before this, but
actually, it sounds good. It sounds pretty good. Cotton Candy for breakfast.
It's just tough. I mean, best of 3 is a very tough situation for you to be in for a bracket perspective. I mean, if there had been maybe another set, best of 5, or if there had been one more game, maybe La France could have, pushed it forward. And we saw some survivability there, but it's, Cotton Candy really showed why they were able to end up winning, especially that game on Piranha Pit, where they had a lot of coordination.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll see exactly what comes of that for the next few matches. But for now, folks, we're going to take a moment to recoup and give ourselves a little bit of a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be into top 8 action in this tournament in just a little bit. We'll be back in just a little bit.
日はなんかすごく盛り上がっている。
いいっすよね、こういう
いや本当にいい。
このルールが好きだったら、ぜひね、出てみてください。
そう。準決勝始まり結構うわ。
遠征だけはすごいですのレベルじゃなかった。ちゃんとすごかったわ。
ワンチャンスものにした方が勝ちです。
でもこれいけるんじゃない？うわいけた。
オーディン X サイバープレッサー。これは打率が素晴らしい。ゴールを閉じたい。ここから
うわ、いい。うわ、その入れ方めっち
ゴールが
ゃいい。
閉じられた。そこに投げ込むゴール20代
無理やり押し込みますね、これ多分。ディフェンス。
入れた。シュートゴールあサリが集まるか。シュートゴール。ここから
足りてる。
出てきない。シュート
足りてる。
あと1個味方を呼び込む。そして
うわマリオ戻された。
入ってないですよ。間に合わなかったんです。そのジャンプでのシュートは。
Welcome back, everybody, to a very special sleep-deprived edition of the Clam World Cup Season 7 English cast. My name is Shiny Hunter Zach, and of course joining me is the illustrious and well-known K-Bot. And K-Bot, we are going to be getting right in back to the bracket stage of things where we have one familiar team and one team that's relatively new to our eyes. Asari-chan is going to be taking on Kagi Nyanko Game, or KeyCat Game for short.
Yeah, it should be a good one here. For those of you that are just joining us, we are watching a Clamblitz only Japanese tournament this morning. So for those of you that are like, wait, what IPL tournament's happening right now? That is it. This is a Japanese tournament. We're just running the English stream for it. So it's been a lot of fun to watch the game so far. We've seen a lot of high-level players come out. And we see a few recognizable names on Asari-chan here. Chikashi, you might know as a Tenebraller player, and Cha-Cha is a incredibly good ink brush. Both players, and really all players in this lobby, of course, going to be exceptional at their craft. We'll just have to see what comes of this as these players now fight up against one another on Clamblitz. Map selection is the monthly rotation for Clam's. First map is predetermined, followed by counter picks for the rest of this. And we are in best of 5 territory now, so a little bit more breathing room for these teams as we head on to Arowana Mall for our first map.
All right, looks like we're going to have KeyCat Game in the blue, and Asari-chan is going to be in the green. In terms of weapon loadouts, we are going to be seeing that Ink Brush variant coming back out once again, and in addition to some other local favorites, but we do have another pretty interesting weapon choice, which I believe to be the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, something that we have not yet seen today. And on the opposite side of things for KeyCat Game, some similar stuff. We've got the K52 once again, the Foil Squeezer once again, that Tense Umbrella, which is going to have the bubbles at their disposal, and then, of course, an ink brush of their own.
Yeah, the other interesting thing, again, not going to expect to see a lot of thorough map coverage. It's probably going to be very splotchy no matter where we see it. Already, hold that thought, we're already seeing a power claim go in the basket. This Kens 52 has found a way to weasel its way up underneath this barrier. And now at least one more claim's going to get thrown in here. Cha-Cha able to make his way over as well with just a few more additional claims thrown in the basket. Down to 62, decent opening here, especially given that only 2 members were able to make their way underneath this barrier. Now a few more members going down, but no, the barrier goes up in just the nick of time. Some sigh of relief for KeyCat Game here, but unfortunate if you are Asari-chan, who are just continuing to maintain their presence underneath this barrier.
Yeah, KeyCat Game doing a great job of breaking that, and they are, seeing a type of composition that we haven't really looked at yet, which is the double armor composition for the permanent ink brush and the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. Of course, they still have the support of the bubbles, which are going to be hanging around in that hallway, making it more accessible for them and pretty difficult to take out any of their teammates that end up trying to push through there. However, we are seeing some counter pushes come in. Clam-chan, Asari-chan going to be getting the first pick here onto that permanent ink brush, and they are going to have the entire width of that umbrella taking up the hallway, which allows them sort of like a miniature bubble, if you will. The full bubble's coming out now on top of that, plus a splash wall. How can you even contend with that? All you can do is throw bombs, spray, and pray. Unfortunately, for the members of KeyCat Game, that is enough to give Asari-chan the lead, and they now have all members back alive. Unfortunately, though, as the jumps come back in, no one is able to hang around long enough under the basket, but I have to think if you're Asari-chan here, you're happy enough with that taking the lead.
absolutely have to be happy enough here, but your opponents are immediately going to respond, and actually they're starting to get this clock down quite soon. The Booyah Bomb going to go up in the air, is going to be able to get taken out, but I think someone else was able to pick up that power clam just in the nick of time. What happened there? KeyCat Game able to find and cause enough chaos underneath this barrier in order to get enough clams in.
Like a pendulum. It just goes up and down, and it's so swingy in terms of the momentum. And you can see no one on either team getting higher than a 4KA, and that alone, 3 basic pushes, 3 breaks of the basket was enough to end this game. We've seen some slower games. We've seen a couple go to overtime. This one blazing through Arowana Mall and is going to give KeyCat Game, who only needed 2 of those pushes, the win in game 1 here. So again, going to counterpicking going to be an important method for which Asari-chan, who we saw play very well earlier, to come back and have a chance to take game 2, tie this series up. And you know, similar ideologies in terms of the main weapons. And again, we're seeing just that slight deviation in terms of what specials they prefer. And there's no doubt that Ink Armor is still rather strong.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you mentioned the game blazing right by. Maybe it's because neither team wanted to play that map. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Arowana Mall, one of those kind of sore thumbs, all told. But nonetheless, we'll be getting into this in just a little bit. I do believe, and I could be wrong. I'm actually gonna have to double check. No, it is still best of 3. Why did I think it was a best of 5? I think I'm getting lied to if I take that. I think that's what it is. Bracket says best of 3. So, still will be best of 3s. Not like, you know, maybe you didn't just want to throw that Arowana Mall map away, you know, if you're Asari-chan here. But nonetheless, of course, as you mentioned, you'll be going to your counter pick, something that you're more comfortable in, something that hopefully, you know, players like Cha-Cha can cause a lot of chaos on. You see Jakashi, right, maybe sitting underneath that barrier. Maybe they're able to come up with something where both those come, you know, together. We saw them win on Port earlier, which, you know, could be a potential option here. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see on what exactly comes of this.
Yeah, if you think Arowana is a map that people don't want to play, look at the 3 maps that have not come up once on stream out of the 8 total for the month of June in our map pool. Again, those being Sturgeon, Skipper, and Muscle Forge. So we'll see if any of those come up. We do see Sturgeon being hovered over, and they will be going for it. So for the first time on stream, we are going to be seeing not a new map, but a new map. Sturgeon Shipyard coming out. This is another one of those pretty large maps, and quite a bit of area for all types of range of weapons to excel. There's a lot of high ground here, a lot of grading. If you run a Splatling, that could be a really good choice for a map like this. And if you run smaller range weapons like what we've seen, you know, low to mid-range weapons, again, like the Splattershot variants and the K52 or the just any 52 in particular. And of course, naturally, that Ink Brush can be successful. However, the Tent Umbrella can also do well because the ramps you can see on the left and right-hand side of your map are just about the size of that canopy there. So again, you have that built-in shielding, and that could give you, along with things like the bubbles, a way to push in.
Still sticking with this rapid throw as well here. Actually, no, that's going to be the other side picking it up this time around, trying to find that chip damage and clear things out. And actually, KeyCat Game meeting with an ink brush of their own as well. The permanent ink brush coming out here. So that'll be interesting to watch out for as we get into business here. Exactly how some of these compositions and how Cha-Cha is going to fare up against, you know, a brush player on the opposing side of the map.
Yeah, that was Bakuman on the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. They're again going for that double armor variant. And you can see the mobility of the permanent ink brushes. They have the power clam. They don't even need the bubbles to push in. They can use them instead to allow for jump-ins. And not only that, but the bubble carrier themselves had quite a few clams at their disposal. The only clam left belongs to this player here that is going to be on what I believe to be the K52. They have that Booyah Bomb at the ready. They're able to get a pick as well. Even though they've lost their Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, they're not going to have anywhere near any more armor for this push. They've already gotten past the halfway point. They don't even need their specials at this point. We're seeing a double from the permanent ink brush, including winning the ink brush duel. The push is still going on as we see canopies clash against splash balls, which clash against Booyah Bombs. And from all of that, KeyCat Game is still alive. They only need about 4 clams left to seal the deal, and they have them at their disposal. Can they jump in? The barrier is just about to come back up. I don't think they're going to come back in time, but 11 is a fantastic starting push for not all that much commitment.
One of the problems here, Asari-chan doesn't have that many tools in order to clear out their opponents. They don't have 10 missiles at the ready. They don't have an ink armor at the ready. They have none of these, real things that you would maybe expect them to find. And they really don't even have range or a big painting presence either to force their opponents away from underneath their barrier. And so their opponents just kind of camping out, setting up a tent quite literally, to take care of business here, maintain their presence underneath that barrier and provide more opportunities for teammates to jump on in. And now even still, they're continuing to keep this one up. As you see the Rapid Pro able to pick off at least one. Looks like they're not going to commit an approach on this as they did go 2 down on other sides of the map. But nonetheless here, if you are Asari-chan, you're having a very difficult time actually breaking and moving forward. Maybe slowly but surely here as a few more start to fall, but nonetheless, you've got to make quite a commitment in order to get down to this 11-point mark. We'll have to see if they can get set up and get as long of a push going as their opponents just did.
Yeah, if you're Asari-chan, you take out 2 of their key players there to start this one. Bakuman and Todo, who are on the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco and the Foil Squeezer, respectively. But you still have to deal with Sandwich here, who is going to be on the permanent ink brush and has just built up that armor. So what was going to be the potential for a push here, 2 down, evidently not enough here, or Asari-chan not feeling confident enough in what they have to get it started here. And that may be a bit of an error there as they lose 2, now 3 members. The only one alive is going to be the K-52, who's going to extend the Booyah Bomb here and is going to be met with the counter Booyah Bomb, which leads to a mess of ink right in front of the barricade here, which has not yet been broken and just has now. They need a power clam plus, I believe, about 4 or 5 additional clams beyond that to win there. And there's a great move from Todo to shoot out that bubble before jumping down and pop it right as they're able to get a kill there. Unfortunately for the rest of their team, though, they're going to lose 2, now 3 members, and a pop of the barricade is about all they can do here. And Asari-chan, as you can see them using this baller here, thinking about making an immediate counter push. They're going to rethink that here and stay alive as they wait for the rest of their team to recuperate.
I mean, Cha-Cha just has nowhere to go. There's nowhere that's comfortable that he can try to move forward, try to find an opening, because there's always going to be someone from this purple squad pushing down, seeing you, shooting back at you, and they're doing an excellent job of making sure they've got both of these ramps on either side. As you mentioned earlier, somewhere where the 10 umbrella wants to go, you can tell that the focus is being made by KeyCat Game to keep both of those ramps painted purple, make it that much more difficult to convince these members of Asari-chan to push forward via one of those 2 means. But they've got to make a move here soon. They are still scoreless, and we are 35 seconds away from time expiring here in this game. Asari-chan has to be incredibly careful on their own counter pick, otherwise they're going to get knocked out.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out, too, is that the specials have essentially mirrored each other. We saw Booyah Bomb get popped at the same time as Booyah Bomb, Bubble get popped at the same time as Bubble. The one thing that Asari-chan can't really as easily replicate is an armor, and KeyCat Gaming has 2 of them to use. They're building up their armors here for this final push as well, or at least for the final defense. Both of their armor users at about 80%, and all that they have really to use so far for Asari-chan is a bubble, and they've already lost one of their team members, and that was the one who had the bubble, the foil squeezer. They now lose their tent as well, who also had their specials ready, and yet again, it remains just the Booyah Bomb, which also goes down mid-special. A trade there is not going to favor Asari-chan as they essentially get full wiped, and they rush as quickly as they can to no avail. And again, another dominant performance in that second game, despite the counter pick from KeyCat Game.
I mean, well done. Like I said, I mean, compositionally, if you're Asari-chan, what are you going to do to move forward? You're fighting 2 ink armors. You're fighting a Booyah Bomb that can get thrown up. You're fighting bubbles that are just going to get thrown there right in front of you. What are you going to do to force your opponents out? It's one thing that they just did not have an answer for. couldn't find one. They didn't have any Tenna missiles, didn't have any ink armor, didn't have anything that you normally expect. And it's one of the reasons why I think we see some of those other specials be so strong. But nonetheless, they are going to get eliminated from this tournament. It'll be KeyCat Game moving on to their next rounds. And I mean, I don't want to take any credit away from them. Hats off, right? Absolutely able to take care of business, find these strategies, and find, even back to double armor, right? The tried and true. It's able to take care of things here overall. So, yeah, well done. Hats off there. Definitely playing to their advantages too, because that's one of the things, right? If KeyCat Game knows they're not going to get forced out of anyone, then they can just sit on the 2 choke points, the two best ways to get into the barrier for, Asari-chan. They can just sit there and have a field day. They're not going to get pushed out of there, and they're not going to be forced to move. So I think recognizing that was certainly step one for KeyCat's success, and they were able to pull it off in the end.
And a field day is exactly what they had as they were able to 2-0 Asari-chan there. One of the more dominant performances we've seen on stream, despite going into the bracket portion of the tournament. I believe semifinals will be up next, where we will start to see a best of 5 rather than a best of 3. Of course, still featuring the same map representation, where we have the 8 maps for the month of June. One of them being picked for game 1, going into counter picking following that. And it's so interesting to me. One of the things I was really hoping to glean from this tournament was seeing how Japanese teams operate on a mode that I think a lot of players have, again, sort of very divisive feelings towards, but at least in Western tournaments, both LAN and online, Clam Blitz is going to be there and is going to be something that your team will have to master. And multiple strategies have paid off here, of course, using meta weapons, things like the K52, the foil squeezer, and specials, of course, tied to them that lend best to the mode. Things like ink armor, of course, we just saw. Booyah Bomb built into the K52 has been nice, and also the bubble blower, which we've seen some teams pick up 2 of, is such an important facet. But it's not only at the weapon selection screen that your team has to coordinate. It's when they're trying to decide when to push and when not to push. And we saw some hesitation come out from Asari-chan, which led to them never really having a chance to make a push of their own. Some teams, they don't really care if they only pop the barricade and that's all that they do. We saw that on the game on Piranha Pit. We saw Cotton Candy just sneak behind the enemy team, break the barricade before the opposing team could break theirs, and it completely derailed any momentum that their opponent had. And so these strategies of when do you pop, when don't you pop, how many players down do you need necessarily to push forward, it's not exactly a scientific formula, but it is something that your team has to make a decision on and really practice and master. Because if you go up against these teams that have, players hitting 3,000, for example, in ranked play, that shows you how not only skilled they are, but also just determined, how diehard they are in giving their best and not willing to give up an inch of room without a hard-fought battle.
Yeah, definitely. And so, have to see what else comes of the rest of the day today. But for now, I think we'll probably end up taking a very brief break before we hop into our semifinal sets. And of course, waiting on a few other matches to finish up. So I imagine we'll be getting into this in just a little bit. So bear with us, folks. Don't go anywhere. I think we'll be getting our last semifinal set up here. We'll just take a very brief break as we step away. Semifinals coming shortly. Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Season 7 of the Clam World Cup. We're watching a Japanese Clam Blitz only tournament this morning on IPL. My name is Kbot. I am joined by the legendary Shiny Hunter, Zach. You all probably don't recognize his voice unless you were here 3 years ago, which I'm going to guess that the average IPL viewer was not here 3 years ago doing stuff for the competitive Splatoon scene. But nonetheless, great to have you back, Zach, and it's been a lot of fun with the matches that we've seen so far today.
I know that IPL was here 3 years ago, let alone their viewership. But,
they were not.
That's what I love about the Splatoon community. The organic growth is constant, and I'm hoping that growth can expand from the talented players of this Japanese tournament into the Western scene as part of this English broadcast. So we are in semifinals here. That does mean we are changing to a best of 5 with the first map being chosen from one of the 8 June Clam Blitz maps and counter-picking beyond that point. And we are going to be seeing 2 somewhat familiar teams now. So we are going to be seeing Penguin. Their full team name translated to English is Our Main Diet is Penguin, featuring Maple, Sugi, and then the 2 3K XP players, Raymaru, who is a frontliner, and Nigora, who is going to be on Splatlings. And then I believe the other team will be Kabushiki Gaishu Shijimi. So pretty interesting as we go into, again, yet another very, very interesting set. We saw this team, Clam Company Shijimi, their IU especially was a massive, massive slayer, probably the largest slayer we saw in the tournament, going up to an 18 KA in one game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, IU has had an incredible day, at least from what we've seen so far over the course of the day. But of course, talking about Penguin, Nagora, someone you might have recognized from 20XX, making an appearance in a Western event. And so, another familiar name that you might recall. But nonetheless, we'll see what these players have for us here. We are in semifinals. Of course, as you mentioned, best of 5. We'll be starting on we'll be starting on a random map, and the random map is Inkblot this time around. And from this point on, counter picks out of the 8 of the solo rotation that we're all used to seeing. But that solo rotation includes things like Port Mackerel, includes things like Arowana Mall, Gobi Arena, some maps that folks might not be as comfortable with seeing around here in the West. So should be interesting to see exactly what these teams have prepared once we get to that stage. But of course, to start things off, we going to Inkblot Art Academy, the tried and true here for these players. It'll be interesting to see just how active these frontliners can be for both of these squads.
So far, both the players and the randomized map picker have been too scared to even pick Muscle Forge or Skipper Pavilion. So we'll see if one of those 2 maps ends up coming up on stream. But again, Inkblot Art Academy, I think most Splatoon players are pretty familiar with this map as it's been around since basically the inception. So really, really relatively open map. You have a nice overlook on both sides. Not too tall, not too short, just right. You have a little box to get up onto said overlook. So some maneuverability options there for the shorter range weapons, and also some flanking opportunities, although they can be somewhat predictable if you're paying attention to them. If we do end up seeing any sort of charger, of course, we are probably going to see Nigora on a Splatling, which gives you that element of range. And we've also seen both the Jet and Custom Jet Squelcher make appearances, which for this map, maybe not the greatest choice, although it does give you, again, some high ground that you can jump up on, and you can do some work, hopefully untouched, which is, of course, your goal as an anchor, is to stay alive as long as possible. But here we go, game 1 in this best of 5 series. Let's see what weapons are being brought to the table.
Ton Umbrella coming out. We've seen that numerous times so far today as something that can just sit underneath the barrier at all times. And of course, you mentioned that Jet Squelcher as well. It's just an incredibly versatile weapon. And of course, Tenet missiles have been incredibly annoying for players as of late. It's something that forces your opponents to move and get out of the way, at least temporarily. And we're already starting to see that come to life here early in this game. And imagine we're going to be seeing a lot more Tenet missiles rain down from above. As we look at these lineups here. As you see, there are 2 Tenet missiles, sets of Tenet missiles, I should say, coming out of this Penguin squad. But nonetheless, looks like it's going to be a 2-down situation early on, and we'll see what IU and the crew can do here to start moving forward and finding a little bit of control underneath the barrier. Power Clam all charged up and ready to go here. And here comes the Blue Bomb as well. Can't quite seem to find anyone to throw this at right away. But now with the Tenebrella moving into position, it'll allow for this jump to come on forward. And we've got a significant number of clams, but a bunch of green ink immediately coming down and is going to be able to shut things down just at the 60-point mark. Good there to make sure that things don't get out of hand.
Yeah, I like that last point a lot. You know, good way to sort of show how pretty evenly matched these teams are. We didn't get to talk too much about the Kensa Mini being brought in. You know, we expected a Splatling, but not one with that such short of range. That's going to have the Toxic Mist, which we discussed earlier, as Reimaru picks up a spicy little double kill there and has the Tenemis's to boot. And now the Toxic Mist, of course, being paired with that Ultra Stamp, which Nigora is not shy about getting right into the team there. They're going to pop the Ultra Stamp right on top of IU. Unfortunately, not able to make the jump or make the throw of the hammer, but it is going to allow his team to get the lead here as Shijimi using that momentum to make the push here. Of course, the Jet Squelcher now feeling comfortable enough to push all the way into mid and using that Toxic Mist to trap an enemy, get away, find some better footing, and also stay alive here, which is a great thing to do. Again, that versatility of the weapon, both using that range to your advantage and also being able to know when to get out.
One of the things we've seen so far over the course of the day is these teams forcing themselves, like having the discipline. All right, it's not going to be worth it trying to get the 1-2 extra clams in the map. Instead, it's going to be worth it to set up my position in mid and make sure that my opponents have slightly fewer options in order to build up their momentum, their mid control to move on forward. We've seen Nagora already trying to go for the same bats play earlier. This time is going to get called out, but they've got to be careful of this inkjet from above. I believe that's Rimaru. Or sorry, that's Maple actually coming in on that Octobrush, able to take care of a few members, and now already they're going to be able to find the last few clams in the basket that they need, and it's going to mean Penguin is going to take an early 1-0 in this best of 5.
Yeah, some back and forth there, but overall strong performance there from Penguin. Again, you see that Kensa Mini Splatling ending up top fragging there. We have a 9KA, and it really lended itself to how aggressive they played, unabashedly getting into the backline of their enemy with that Ultra Stamp in tow and getting an early pick, being so much of a distraction, not even needing to wipe the whole team, just allowing the rest of the team to not feel as pressured as they push forward into their enemy's plat, get up to where they can comfortably throw a Power Clam and sustain, really. Sustaining is the name of the game. As you mentioned, it's not all or nothing. It's some or maybe slightly less than some. So that's what they're ending up taking here. Piranha Pit, it looks like, will be the counter pick as long as they are aware that counter picking exists this time. And we're seeing that familiarity. There's some preference here among the maps and some, and I think for Shijimi, for Clam Company, they really felt that their performance, especially in the game that we were able to spectate on Piranha Pit, was strong enough to lend itself to taking this confidence to this map into the semifinal round.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think to your point, a lot of these teams are probably picking the ones that are perhaps a little bit more straightforward. I feel like, you know, we talk about, we haven't seen Muscle Forge yet today, and we haven't seen Skipper Pavilion yet today. I feel like those two maps are a little less straightforward. Here, you've got a big open area, you've got these conveyor belts to kind of play around, and you've got a straight shot, straight line between the two barriers, right? And so it's a lot more straightforward to geometrically sit down and be like, all right, I want my Tenebrella to walk up there, I want them to hold this area. Sure, there are a few things that you might have to worry about, like specific ramps or things that might be worth taking into consideration, but more or less, right? Things are a little bit more straightforward. These players are used to playing on these maps, and they're going to opt for what is most comfortable in these situations like this when they're able to come up with what maps they want to play on. So we'll be heading into this one shortly, and we'll see exactly what Clam Company decides to come forward with. We also, you know, as to your point, I think this was the map that IU got 18 on earlier today. So we'll have to see if we can find that repeat performance for IU and the remainder of Clam Company. And we'll also see what kinds of mix-ups that this Penguin squad's going to be. Looks like Nagora sticking on this Kensa Mini for now, and not many other changes coming out of this.
Yep, Shijimi and Clam Company in purple going to be running the double 52 comp. They're going to be going with one Deco and one Kensa, so they are still going to have the Booyah Bomb at their disposal. They're also going to bring in the Fire Fin Splat Charger, which was something that we saw previously, which is going to give them, I believe, the Suction Bomb launcher to help things in terms of getting some map control and some coverage, and also maybe even a cheeky little kill against something like a Splash Wall, which has been seen to be a favorite. On the opposite side of things, we have Penguin has an Octobrush special ready, as well as that Ultra Stamp from the Kimmy, looking for one of those first picks. But on the opposite side of things, of course, Nobunaga trying to find their first pick on the Charger. Naigora, though, not going to let that happen as the Ultra Stamp is going to come out. It's a 3-down situation as well. Tried to get the final one with the Ultra Stamp throw, and it's not going to be enough. Shonchan trying to get away, but unfortunately dies on the ink rail, and this should be a pretty hefty push from Penguin.
We're seeing things moves a lot quicker now that we don't have these setup blows to worry about on either side of the map. You see paint coverage getting built up much quicker, and we're seeing these teams starting to more quickly capitalize on the fact that it's a 3-down situation on their opponent's side. Very nice pick here coming in to firmly shut things down, and we'll have to see what the response is here, of course. Coming in for this Clam Company squad, they haven't quite been able to find their footing, at least so far in this set, but coming up with a few nice picks here in a row here. Able to take care of some business, but they still have to fight their way through mid. They still have to pick up more claims at the ready, and still have to continue pushing forward here. Now this Kensa 52 Deco dropping back for this Stingray, and we'll have to see. Can't seem to find any picks, and a lot of these members right now for Penguin kind of holding back, you know, playing a little bit more passively here. Oh, I say that. Inkjet gets popped, able to find 2, might be looking for a 3rd one here, but just out of range. Well done here to make sure that this push can't go anywhere, and they are stuck in it.
Yeah, that was a sizable inkjet. You know this map is quite large, so it can be difficult to exactly pinpoint your target, especially without the aid of something like an ink mine or your teammate calling out their location via antenna missile. So great shot there. The Stingray is going to be back online here for the K52 Deco, and so they're going to pop it. Not too much avail. The ink or Octobrush rather does end up going down, and the antenna missiles are going to try and get things done. That's a 2-down situation now on the side of our green team here. Penguin losing 3 of their members, but on the side of Shijimi also going down 2. They are going to still have their Suction Bomb Rush at the ready, so if they are losing map control here, which is pretty split in mid, that will be at their disposal to help run things. Again, Nobunaga, I will always admire the sort of steadfastness and in the face of adversity that Charger players have, because there's toxicness and other bombs being thrown right in their face, and they're still able to hit shots and even give paint to their team, and that's allowing the members of Clam Company to have their first push of the game.
And they're finally able to start getting forward here, but now Chun trying to find a few more, but is just getting pressured away, and without the support of the rest of the team, it's very difficult to dive yourself forward into this 1v3. Trying to do that here is going to be able to find one, but cannot find these clams in the basket. And so only a few points on the board, just 4 clams in the basket all told for the side of Clam Company, and they've got to be able to find another response here quite quickly. Otherwise, they will be out of luck as another inkjet goes up in the sky. It's able to get taken down this time around, and now we'll have to see what else can come of this, but the 10 missiles continuing to come out and rain terror from above. We'll have to see exactly what Clam Company does here in order to regain their footing, because they have not quite had it, and still only one power climb on the map. It's backed by their own barrier. No one's picked that up yet, and they're going to have to make one last now or never ever.
Yeah, for Inkjet users, it's the opposite of Icarus. Icarus was flying too close to the sun. For Octobrush users, if you fly too low, you run the risk of being splatted by somebody with short range who can nail you quite quickly with one of those 3 or 4 burst or even 2 burst weapons there. We see the antenna missiles come out. That's going to mean 2 players on the side of Shijimi fall, and they have their Ultra Stamp at the ready, but that's about it. Nobody's that close to a special, so Naigora's really going to have to put in some work here, and a big kill there by Nobunaga, who gets the snipe before jumping back out to safety to retain their Suction Bomb Rush. They will lose their K52, but on the other side of things, Reinmaru desperately holding on to the only power claim currently in existence, but the onus is still on Shijimi. Shijimi desperately trying to build up specials. They have that Ray back. They still have the Suction Bomb Rush. They're about to get an Ink Armor if Chon Clam can stay alive, and with the waning seconds coming down here, will they even be able to pop this barricade?
They've got a long way to go. 2 power clams up on the map for them, but there is nobody close to this barrier. You see Nagora coming in from behind. There's the Slipe as well, able to take care of business here. That's the complete wipe, and that will be the game. Heading over to Penguin. Well done by them in order to secure this deal, but you know, a little bit unfortunate that we just couldn't quite see Shijimi take care of business, continue to build up that momentum. It's very much about that momentum, especially when you're trying to make a push. Couldn't quite seem to find it this game around either, and they'll have to go back to the drawing board, find another map they're comfortable with here. Otherwise, they risk getting knocked out.
Yeah, so a bit of forward progress there. Of course, it is your counter pick, so you expect to be playing better, but still a very oppressive style of gameplay coming in from Penguin, which is proving just too much to handle, despite some nice shots there from Nobunaga and IU, of course, being a constant threat. Penguin, I think, sees that and says, okay, we'll see your 52, we'll raise you a 52, and is using the things like the Stingray, mainly the Booyah Bomb to help control mid, and shutting down quickly the other specials before they get used. I think in particular, the NZAP, Chon-chan, not really able to use that Ink Armor too terribly much. And so as we move on to map number 3, the counter pick will go once again to Arowana Mall. You have to wonder, okay, are we able to parse out in this short amount of time, 90 seconds maximum for the countdown clock, what was working for us as Shijimi, as Clam Company, and what do we need to change, both based on the map and based on the playstyle of a team like Penguin, which has been, you know, mostly relatively aggressive. So you need something that can both stay back, you need something that can enter. I don't know if that manifests itself as a baller, if that manifests itself as another armor, or if you just stick with what you know and hope it can play best.
Yeah, I think looking at that last weapon composition for Clam Company, right? Running that double Kensa 50, or that double 52, not double Kensa 52. One was a K52, the other was a Deco. I think on paper it looks okay, right? You've still got your Stingray, it's your long range special. You've got a bomb launcher on the fire fin that you can use, and you've got that K52, of course, with the BL bomb, and then that NZAP providing armor. But that ends up providing the armor for the 52s to continue going forward, but the Deco has to drop back in order to use the Stingray. It's just a weird combination to actually get quite right. So I imagine that those players were picking the weapons because they're more comfortable just playing the 52, probably on like different teams. You talk about pickup culture a little bit within the Japanese scene is what we see, tend to happen a little bit more, but nonetheless, I think it's just a difficult weapon composition overall. So I'm interested to see what kinds of things they do to shift away from that double 52 composition that we were looking at. It didn't appear to be the strongest here. Maybe something that can paint a little bit more, or actually in this case, we're going to see the Tent Umbrella come out here, looking to try to take care of some of these great areas and some of those closed corridors on Arowana Mall.
Yeah, so this starts the win or go home period here for Shijimi. They really need a desperate reverse sweep, and that has manifested itself, as I said, in a double bubble composition. So they're also going to go with the Jet Sculptor, the custom variant this time, so they're not going to go with the missiles. They instead opt for something that more, I think, aligns so to this map as being very straightforward, very linear. And again, the NZAP, so really trying to make use of that armor. Hopefully they can build it up better this time than last time. And on the opposite side of things for Penguin, they're also going to be bringing in the custom jet. So something that is typical of the map, it seems. Same with the 52, where, we have something that is quite meta that they're not opting to bring. They're going instead for like an Octobrush instead, as well as that same Kimi that has been their main point of getting into both the hallways and getting some of the first picks of the game.
Yeah, and they're already starting to build this up here. Actually, it looks like Shijimi might have an opportunity to continue pushing forward. You see that Tent Umbrella working its way up that closed corridor, and Sean is in position here with a few more clams spawning right underneath the barrier. Lucky break here for them as they're going to be able to find the first push of this game. Now, able to throw a few more clams in. Sean going to pop this in armor again, and that football is going back up to the top. Hopefully someone can find a way to get it in the basket, and they will. 36 points already. Now down to 33, looking for a few more, but Sean's going to get taken down finally here, and that'll mean that it potentially a little bit more retreating, but no, actually, they're sticking around, trying to find a little bit more, but alas, they cannot find another Clam in the barrier in time. Down to the 30-point mark, which is huge for them to be able to take care of business, and that staying power, the 10 umbrella, the staying power of a lot of these weapons in the composition is working to the favor of Clam Company. Now it's just a matter of what we'll have to find, see if there's going to be a mid-set adaptation here coming in from Penguin.
Yeah, you've denoted the dangers of overstaying your welcome in front of the basket, and with no clams at their disposal, I think they actually lost a member because they were overstepping their boundaries and were trying to get away, but were just outranged in terms of their weapon choice. But they've comfortably gained 22 clams back. They're going to have to watch out for the Stingray here, as it looks like super jumping to a teammate is going to be the best option, and it actually works in terms of keeping them alive. They do end up popping both the armor and the bubbles here to contend with things, and they're getting closer to 30 clams. They need about a couple power clams just to break the penalty that they had beset upon them. But keeping this pressure, if you look at the map overlay, there is just yellow everywhere. There's nowhere really for the members of Penguin to even break through. Now, though, we see the 10 missiles come out. That's going to lead to a kill there on the NZAP. And what could have been a great forward push, and they did end up eating through most, but not all of their penalty, ends up falling relatively flat. Of course, you know, if you're Shijimi, you like the ability to sort of maintain mid and also maintain that pressure, but they could have ended up with a lot more there as they had almost 30 clams at their disposal.
On the alternative, next time they make a push, they are already going to be getting that, lead extended even more. But of course, if you are Penguin, you're going to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. As Raymaru starting to get set up here. It's a 2-down situation, but you see the Stingray coming out. Oh no. One player is going to go down here. That football is going to despawn because I think it fell in the water. And so now we're going to have to see a little bit more regrouping coming out of Penguin. They're not going to be able to find the exact push that they wanted to, as just a few members were getting caught out. And that's sometimes all it takes is that player with the football to go down and have that football bounce in an unfortunate manner. But nonetheless, you already see Ngora actually going for an incredibly wide flank back to the opponent's side of the map as some other members are starting to push forward. The problem is, again, where's their power clam right now? They don't have one. There's one sitting underneath their own barrier back at that penny clam, but nonetheless, there's just not enough to make this push really work for Penguin right now, and they're all over the place trying to catch some of these members of this yellow squad off. And it looks like the defenses are starting to scramble just a little bit more. But again, we're 45 seconds left to go in this game, and Penguin still has to get a push going.
Yeah, they were out of options there. They had no specials. Their highest special count was at 40, and the members of Shijimi of Clam Company were ducking and dodging their way around to where even their main weapons were not able to hit them. However, it looks like they finally found some ground. Penguin able to get 2 down here, but look at the map. That is just to reclaim mid and even try and break into the hallway. This is not any forward progress towards either getting clams, of which they have 1 power, or finding more sustainable picks closer to the basket that lend itself toward making a push. A 1v1 trade essentially there, as Raymaru is going to go down in that trade. And now another power clam, meaning that they have 2 available, but they're still going to have to scrounge beyond that around the basket and break the basket at all in order for there to be any hope of a push here. On the opposite side of things, Shijimi really doing a fantastic job here. They had the Stingray. The Stingray is actually going to go down. It's a 3-down situation. The only person left alive is the foil squeezer. Now it's a race to the basket. Can Penguin get anyone there? And it looks like they're just too late. They tried to jump in with a power clam and break the barricade, but it's too little too late. It's just enough of a defense here from the members of Shijimi to take game 3 and have the onus to start what could be a reverse sweep.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think their staying power was just so strong. You talk about the range that a foil squeezer, that a jet squelcher has on top of that 10 umbrella that we've talked about, able to shut down a various number of positions. It actually worked in their favor quite well, especially when you're looking at, on the other side of the map, you're looking towards things like the Kensa 52. It's going to start to get limited in its range when you're going up against things like this foil squeezer, jet squelcher, and etc. So able to find, the combination that works here. And again, we'll have to see, what kinds of adaptations, because it's one of the things, these members of Penguin have to be thinking about these sorts of things, Now they're thinking about not only where can they counterpick to, but where maybe that 10 umbrella is less of a threat. Spoiler alert, it's not going to be Skip or Pavilion. And, you know, they're going to have other opportunities here. Actually, Skipper might not be the worst idea in the world because objective is not mid. You know, normally we think of it being a very strong map for zones or something like that for Tenebrella. But here in this case, maybe it's something that they could opt for. But we'll have to see, of course, what they decide to do. But of course, you have to imagine that mid-game, when they're thinking about the weapon compositions, they also have to be thinking about how they're going to start dealing with things like, you know, the added range that is coming from some of these members.
Yeah, you have the momentum now, and you found something that works. And it was not a blowout by any means. You know, you still have some work to do in terms of putting together a team composition that whatever map that Penguin decides to counterpick to is going to be a strong option. But you have the foundation there. You know, Ayu and Nobunaga in terms of your Slayer and your backline anchor, respectively, really doing great. Chonchan, you know, I think a little bit better in terms of that survivability. I noticeably saw a few more instances where players had ink armor than in game 2, but I wouldn't say perfect still. So I hope that if they stay on, you know, an armor farming weapon, that they are able to, you know, stay alive and use that to the best of their ability. But you have specials that can strip that away pretty easily. You know, the Stingray with just a hit or two of that can basically end the power of your special. And maybe their map choices could be dependent on how difficult it was to go up against a Stingray. So Gobi Arena will be the choice. You have more of a larger rectangle / square type map versus, you know, just the very thin line that is Arowana Mall. And so when we watched this map earlier, you know, it's not as easy to get to the basket. It's not as easy to find the right choke point. And if Toxic Mists are in play for either of these teams, that's going to make it even more difficult to have the mobility and the presence required to hold a push down.
Yeah, and the other thing about Gobi Arena especially, Tenebrella, significantly less useful, right? You can't really do much with that Tenebrella after you get past those grates. Like, yeah, sure, there are a few things you can do here or there, but the bubbles are actually going to be what is incredibly more useful than that Tenebrella, something that can cover you on all sides as opposed to just kind of like that panel, right? And so I imagine that could be the logic here, right? That Tenebrella is going to have a little bit more of a difficult time actually taking care of business. And so maybe they'll have to opt for something to go back to something like that double 52 gal composition that we were seeing earlier that will have to kind of, you know, maybe they'll have to pull that out because they don't have a lot of other weapons that they're comfortable with playing here. Although probably would be a little bit weird, again, like I said, to see that again. Depending on how these players feel. But nonetheless, should definitely be interesting to see exactly how this one plays out. You know, mentioning the amount of missiles that we're talking about and things of that nature. And I think the interesting thing, IPL's testing a few things out in the background here, but we're getting a few glimpses at like the number of specials overall that are actually being, you know, charged by these players than actually used. And on average, actually, Clam Company is using less specials. That was true even for the last game where they won. So, you know, definitely not necessarily the special charging overall that's getting to them. It's going to be all about making sure that you've got the Clam economy in your control and converting that into pushes. And then, of course, how you're using those specials. Tenebrella is picked here, but it is the bubble variant. We'll have to see how that plays into things.
It's going to be Shijimi Clam Company in green here with Penguin in purple, as we have, you know, a lot of weapons that we've been seeing pretty consistently. You know, again, Shijimi bringing in the N-Zap. Once again, they farm armor quite quickly. They decide that they're going to wait and use it maybe when their Tenebrella comes back, because they already went down. And the Octobrush. Octobrush is going to be a pretty strong weapon. Great maneuverability in what is a relatively wide open middle point of the map to go along with the Foil Squeezer, which Foil Squeezer is just a devastating weapon to play in a mode like this. You know, if you can tap the trigger, get that extra added range and maneuverability. Very, very strong weapon. You see Naingohara getting the pop on the bubbles here. Not really much coming out of it there, but they are going to have the map control, which is special in and of itself, where Ayu now has to jump out and reclaim some territory back on their own overlook. And that has allowed 29 clams to manifest here on the side of Penguin, now 30. So if you're talking about first pushes, this is going to be a great start here if they can just get close enough to break that barrier. However, we talked about Toxic Mist. This area is small enough to where it can shut down the one choke that you mainly have. However, with that Inkjet in tow, they are going to be able to get not only the power clam, but almost all of their clams, and they still have a power clam left, and they dunk it in. So that's all up to 16. They lose 2 of their members. This is where that stealth jump could really come into play. They still have Bubble at the disposal, and they're letting the time tick down just a little bit. Nagahara getting the sneaky kill and the jump in as well, using the bubbles both as a shield and as a weapon. And with 3 players down on the side of Shichibi and just 1 clam to go, that is going to do it here on Gobi Arena.
Blink and you miss it. That was quite incredible play coming in from Penguin, able to 100-0 that one immediately, taking care of business and striking when the time is right. That's the other thing too, right? That Inkjet coming in, 10 missiles coming in, forcing these members away of Clam Company. It's one of the reasons why these players know exactly what they want. They know when the time to strike is, and they are going right for it. So hats off to Penguin. They're going to be taking a trip to Grand Finals, which we are going to see probably in just a little bit. I imagine it's almost about ready. Interestingly enough, we're actually going to see a team that we have not seen streamed yet today, at least on the Western broadcast. So that should be fun for us. See what kinds of strategies they've been employing that we haven't seen so far.
Yeah, Grand Final is going to be coming up soon. Not much will change in terms of the back-end logistics. We're still going to have a best of 5. We're still going to have a random starting map, and we're still going to have counter-picking. But as K-Bot mentioned, we are going to be seeing a new team, and that team is going to be, I believe, Together. And Together is going to have Ryusei Boy, Rotoi, Honoka, and Odin X at their disposal. We'll see if that ends up playing out. And of course, the team that we just saw emphatically take back Game 4 after going down in Game 3, and that being Penguin. So really, really strong competition so far. I've really enjoyed having the ability to see what these Clam Blitz, strategies are, and you can see how Clam Company really was able to not get away from the specials being used by Penguin. They died to a variety of specials. It was, or not only just specials, but also the main weapons themselves, but going down to things like the Inkjet, the Tenna missiles, even dying to things like Auto Bomb. It's not just one thing that was the end of the tournament there for Clam Company. It was Penguin using the majority of the weapons, not just the main weapon, but every weapon at their disposal to take them out. And I think taking that momentum, the strength of their composition into Grand Finals, despite not having seen what Together can do, of course, both of these teams being Clam World Cup previous winners or having players on their teams that are previous winners, it is really going to be a tough competition going into Grands.
Yeah, it absolutely will be a tough composition. And, to your point, right? When you take everything and the kitchen sink and you throw it at your opponents, something's bound to connect. Something is bound to hit them, right? And that's exactly what Penguin was able to do there towards the end. You saw the Tenna missiles, Inkjet, Bubble Blower, even being a little bit more of that defensive and even, that aggressive play as well, for Nagora. So just well done there overall. And we'll have to see if they can repeat those kinds of performances because, 100-point pushes easily doable, right? Especially when you're not looking at things like penalties and things like that. Just able to take care of business right away, and sometimes just not even giving your opponents the opportunity to respond is something that is dangerous and something that both these teams are going to have to watch out for, and probably something that both of them have the capability of doing. Frankly, there wasn't a lot that their opponents could do. I mean, obviously I'm thinking about this in the moment, but it might be worth, as the exercise, going back to see, all right, what actually could, what could Clam Company do in that last game to actually counterplay, right? Once your opponents are in, how are you going to force them away? And so that's one of the things that I think was able to get managed quite well. And we'll have to see if, how exactly that changes. So, absolutely good stuff. But of course, I imagine that we'll be getting into this in just a little bit, and we'll see exactly how this goes.
Yeah, as you mentioned, just the management of everything that your team is trying to do, the strategies that you're bringing in. I know Clam Blitz is not necessarily the fan favorite mode, but I can respect, what it brings to the table, in that it basically requires objective participation from just about everyone. Rainmaker, you just have one carrier and 3 sort of security details to protect the president, as it were. Tower control, you can just have one person on the tower if you want to. You can have multiple as well to speed things up. But for Clam Blitz, it is really the ability for your team to come together, gather clams, find one person who is going to and is in a position to have the power clam, and then who is going to be the sort of sacrificial lamb of getting right up in the enemy's face, being right below their basket, and allowing your teammates to either jump in or to sort of slowly come up behind you and get whatever clams in that they have. So we've seen the teams that have succeeded do well because they didn't push in completely empty-handed or just with one power clam. They had 15, 20, almost 30 at their disposal sometimes, which is what helped with those sustained pushes. Now, on top of that, you need to have the balance between when do I slay, when do I focus on a team fight, and when am I free to dump clams in, or when do I just need to bail? We've seen teams say, all right, I've got, maybe 1 or 2 clams left. I'm X amount of distance away from the basket. I have lost 2 of my teammates. Do I go in and try and extend the lead, or do I back out? And I think more often than not, the teams that have won today have been smart enough to back out, save what's special that they had built up, because I don't think any of these players are seriously running much special duration, if any, as one of their perks. So gives you the ability to hold on to your special that much longer for the next team fight.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've talked a lot about, in terms of, all right, what are you going to do? Are you going to back away, especially if you're like the last one up, right? Are you going to stay there? Are you going to back away? How exactly is you going to play into things? I think in a lot of cases, though, when we've seen 2 members alive, those 2 members dig their heels in, especially if they have a bubble blower or like bubbles that are just kind of lingering around. Bubbles almost act as like a free tent shield or something like that, right? So it's almost like you've got 2.5 players that are sitting there that you're able to kind of continue making a presence and making a little bit of chaos underneath your opponent's barrier. I think that's a lot of what we've been seeing so far here as well. And so, again, one of the reasons we've talked about bubbles being incredibly strong, you're seeing a lot more foil squeezers get picked up in general. And so, I think we'll have to see exactly what kinds of things are going to come out of that. And again, in a lot of cases, it's about forcing your opponent away. And how are you going to do that? Well, the easiest way is probably popping 10 missiles to get them out of here. Could also be a lot more ink coverage and map control. It could be a lot of things. It could be popping armor and trying to run forward and running into your opponents, but that tends not to work against a bubble blower. So we'll see exactly what the plan is. Of course, folks, if you are just joining us, we're just about to get underway with grand finals here. We're watching the Clam World Cup Season 7, the Japanese Clam Blitz tournament that is taking place today. We are your English rebroadcast here. I'm Kbot, joined by Zach. It's been a lot of fun so far today. If you missed it from earlier, I would recommend going back and watching it. I know I'll probably be going back to watch a few things, try to pick up a few more lessons learned. And the way this will work, best of 5. Random after start is Arowana Mall, and then teams are allowed to counterpick using only the solo clams rotation from this month. So you've seen a lot of interesting maps today, and of course, we'll start off heading back to Arowana.
Yeah, definitely been a popular choice today. Of course, this one, not exactly picked, but was one that has, come up natively throughout the tournament and is one that could be a potential turning point or could be to the advantage of a certain style of play. So, the hallways, of course, are great for walls, bubbles, canopies of tent umbrellas. and are also great for getting picks. If somebody's coming back from spawn and they are on that top little drop down, if you're able to grab a pick from there on either side of things, whether you're defending or if you're the team that's trying to push forward, that could sway the tides of whether you're able to make a push then or whether you need to back out. And again, as K-Bot mentioned, it sort of depends on what you have at your disposal at the time. So how close are you to your special? Do you have a special at the ready? What special is it? Is it something where you need to sort of back off and use it like a Stingray or even missiles? Or is it something where you can be the aggressor? We saw the Ultra Stamp really do that well. So here we go, getting into grand finals. It's going to be Together versus Penguin in a best of 5 starting here on Arowana Mall, and I see my favorite weapon of all time being used here, the Tri-Slosher.
Ooh, Tri-Slosher. Haven't seen one of those all day today, but perhaps could be the difference, especially if it comes up with multiple doubles, multiple triples, and taking care of a lot of opponents all at once. So definitely we'll have to see how that one comes into play. Of course, folks, we have not actually seen Together on this stream at all today, so don't quite know what to expect out of this squad. But if you're just joining us, Penguin has a few players you might recognize. Raymaru and Nagora, both 3K XP players that have achieved that status. Maybe not in clams, but have achieved it nonetheless. Nagora, of course, also has played in a handful of Western tournaments, so you might recognize that name from a few players tweeting out their name. But we're getting into this here, and still very neutral, actually, to start things off. You see, it looks like Penguin is starting to build up a little bit more map control and is going to meet their opponents in mid for a duel.
The Tri-Slosher does as the Tri-Slosher wants, and typically that's trading. If it can trade, that tends to be a pretty good day for it, while the NZAP, you know, a little bit more consistently builds up that armor. We see the Tri-Slosher go down this time at the same time as the Jet Squelcher, so the Jet Squelcher losing the progress there on those missiles. So again, opting not to go this time for the Stingray variant. We saw the Stingray v Stingray battle on this map a while back, and again, you mentioned Together, we haven't really seen what they can put together, but they're using a lot of key elements. They are using the custom Jet Squelcher with the Stingray, in which they're going to pop now and have a little bit of an advantage here to try and get a pick here. They do find one on the K52, but it's going to be on the opposite side of things. 2 going down on the side of Together. Now 3 with the Tri-Slosher falling. This creates an opening for Penguin, and they do have the map control in mid, but they haven't really blazed forward into the tunnel like Raymaru is right now. They find a pick here, are looking for the second, and this is exactly what I was talking about. These battles that are on the overlook in this hallway, and who wins them could determine whether a push is made at all, and it looks like the first pop has just happened now.
Able to find one in here is Maple. Now, where will the rest of the follow-up be for Penguin? Nagore trying to pop these bubbles, but it's going to get taken down before they can get just one out. And so now, a few more clams are going to go in, but it doesn't look like it's going to be that considerable of a push here for Penguin. And that's one of the things we've noticed about Arowana Mall so far. Not many pushes actually coming out. That could be the only push that happens this game for Penguin. We'll just have to wait and see how the rest of this one goes, as we are halfway through this clock ticking down to 0. Raymaru, though, still trying to hold on to this closed area. It's one of the things, you know, talking about, is this position going to be beneficial versus trying to get up the rest of those clams for the rest of your teammates. It looks like the rest of the members here safely dropped back. They have a decent amount of mid control, and Nagore is able to find yet another one here and might be continuing to hold this middle zone area for the teammates here. And now power claim at the ready. Nagora, all they have to do is touch the ground, throw these bubbles out, and allow for the jumps to come raining in.
Onanex had no fear there. They immediately popped that Stingray, even though they were backed up into the hallway, and were able to get the remaining pick there in order to make things happen. However, it's going to be Penguin again with the first, or second rather, pop of the Rainmaker, and they are getting quite a substantial number of clams, and they get their deposit, their bank, down to 0 here. But look at the maneuverability of this Octobrush. The way that you can get through these grates where other players just have to walk normally, the speed at which you can do that is a huge asset on something like Clam Blitz, which is dependent on a timer through which, if you're not able to deposit any more clams, that barrier comes back up. So because of that, they're able to get down to 17. They are, again, going to have a pretty sizable penalty of 32 to chew through. But if you are able to work through that, that is a pretty game-ending number right there. However, the Tri-Slosher making use of what Sloshers do best, which is shooting up and over walls, able to get a pick off there. A little bit of momentum gained. It looks like now Together has gained control of mid, but the status here and the splash walls being used in this hallway is so tough to push through, in addition to the Toxic Mist, that for Together to get through this hallway is going to be a trial in and of itself, and they may have to find alternative routing.
They're going to have to here. I mean, they just don't have anything that can really try to contest that splash wall other than that Tri-Slosher. But that Tri-Slosher isn't going to be able to get close enough to that splash wall to start contesting it. It's one of the things I've been noticing so far, this Tri-Slosher on such short range. But now, perhaps poised for a push here with this Power Clam, trying to find a way into the basket. Will there be an opening? It doesn't look like it. Has to jump back to mid, and now trying to find a route in. It's just so difficult given the defenses here of this Penguin squad. You notice they're not actually aggressing its mid much. They're sitting back behind their barrier. They're just trying to defend what they've got so far and make sure that their opponents can't possibly find another Power Clam. There's still just one on the map. Okay, a second on the map here, starting to potentially push forward as we see Odin X here, along with his foil squeezer. Here come the bubbles as well. It's going to provide enough of a shield for to get this one in. They've got a long road ahead and not many clams ahead. You're going to have to come up with a handful of picks here, but with a 3-down situation, it's only Odin X up on this back line. Imagine he's going to get caught up momentarily, and there it is. Red Mario able to seal the deal and take game one of this grand final set.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it perfectly. It just took too long for them to find the correct pathing. They were so dead set. Again, we've talked about having blinders on when you're playing, and they were so determined to get through that left-hand side hallway that they didn't notice that, just walking across the path was viable with things like the bubbles in tow. And with that working for them, it actually made it through to where they were able to get 2 power claims deposited in, but too little too late, as Penguin showing their dominance here in game 1. That will mean that Together gets to counterpick the map for game 2 in this best of 5. And again, we mentioned the difficulty of getting around or breaking the splash walls. Object Shredder, of course, comes in handy where you're able to get some of those down quicker than you would without it, but that can only do so much, and you're having to contend with a decently ranged weapon in a K-52, or even if you have your buddy on the Jet Squelcher or Sea Jet Squelcher next to you, they have even longer range to abuse that splash wall. We saw that on the opposite side of things, actually, with Odin X trying to stay out of the way of the splash wall and having to pop the Stingray just to finish off their target due to not really feeling comfortable getting over the splash wall. So that's something they're really going to need to take into consideration going into game 2. I think the end push should give them a little bit of hope that they are able to do it, but we saw some smart moves there, like Raymaru holding on to the Booyah Bomb until that power claim disappeared. You really want to make sure that nobody's around to try and make that final push, and I think as a defensive team, Penguin did just as well as they have offensively.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was no approach, right? And that's one of the other things. If you're looking at the composition of Together, especially the special composition of that match, you're running double Link Armor, Stingray, Bubbles. Bubbles are useful, Stingray is useful, but the double armor actually is a little bit of a liability. You don't have anything that can happen to randomly chip away at splash walls, right? Like a 10 of missiles, like potentially even an Ink Storm could have been more useful, opting for the Tri Nouveau instead, right? Whereas they just couldn't quite find a way to make those armors incredibly useful because they couldn't ever really get in position where they were able to start doing damage to their opponents, given the fact that they were staring down the barrel of Jet Squelchers and other foil squeezers on the other side of the map. So well done there overall, of course, by Penguin, keeping up the defensive pressure, digging their heels in. You're not going anywhere. We know you don't have anything to throw at us. But now, of course, we're heading to the counterpick of Together, and they are heading to Surgeon Shipyard, which is a arguably much better map, much easier map to use this Tri-Slosher on. It's going to be a little bit more close quarters, and the height difference that does exist is significantly less than something that Tri-Slosher can slosh over, getting a few more of those picks and potentially able to come up with some more creative plays to come in with this as well. So we'll have to see if that's what they opt for here as we load into this game. Actually, we're loading right on away. That was rather fast on the weapon select screen. We'll see what these players have in store for us.
These lobbies certainly do not mess around in terms of speed. If you can't go forward, perhaps you can go around, and maybe that's the mindset here of Together, as they are once again bringing back that Tri-Slosher. I guess it works throughout the rest of the tournament. Why not have it work here? They are going to be bringing some Ink Saver sub as well as sub power-up, so really relying on the burst bombs. One of the most potent bombs, and we see that being used quite a bit. We saw that earlier in the tournament with the GRB. On the opposite side of things, we see Ray Mario again sticking with a strong weapon here that I think can do some serious damage and is a Western favorite. That Neo Splash-O-Matic, again, has similar range to something like an Inzap 85, but you have the Suction Bomb Rush in tow that gives you some instant map control and maybe some pressure and wipes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things here, you'll probably notice Ray Mario going all over the place, especially with how much quick super jump was on that jump. That was pretty fast. I have to imagine we're going to see a lot of claims getting picked up and that used quite a bit, which is something we don't often see. I feel like a lot of overall. We'll have to see exactly what comes of this, but these teams still feeling each other out in the middle of the map. Now Sugi in a little bit of trouble here with the Jet Squelcher. Don't want to be in close quarters and is going to get taken down by an opponent. Now strolling back to the other side of the map. They're just actually kind of hanging out here saying, you know what, you can go and approach me, and Raymaru will able to take care of that one. Now a 2-down situation for Together and potentially an opportunity for Penguin to start collecting some more clams and start to assess their opportunities for pushes. Although with no specials and no clams on the map for them right now, they're not going to be able to do that just yet.
Yeah, armor-heavy compositions really rely on the ability to get that armor out. And we saw Ryusei Boy getting essentially cornered under the bridge in the middle of the map, unable to pop fully their ink armor, trying to at the last second, and it was just too little too late. But again, both these teams playing a much more neutered style. This is a rather large map. The Octobrush going to help there with the beacons, so the ability to get back into the team fight much quicker is going to be a big boon, especially when you're trying to both find clams and get back to the basket in time so that you can keep a push going. However, 2 minutes into the game with 3 minutes left, there haven't been any breaks of any barriers to speak of. Nigora going to win the 1v1 there against Ryusei Boy. They're going to have their bubble at the ready. It's a 3-down situation now for the members of Together, and the bubbles are coming out. Nigora going to be the first one to break the barricade, and they're still going to keep those bubbles alive as the members of Together are starting to flood back in. They do still have a good amount of map control, and they're also going to expend the Stingray from Odin X. Raymaru sharking around, though, is going to find the kill there onto Honoko on the Tri-Slosher. Can they find a second? It suffices for now just to stay alive, allowing Sugi to keep depositing those clams in, and in the blink of an eye, they've gotten it down from 100 to 29. Nigora still alive, at least for the moment. They'll finally fall, but it takes 2 members of Together, and that was a big enough distraction to where there's an outpouring of clams coming through. They were 3 away, and it's going to take a 3-down situation to finally stop this first push of the game from Penguin. What an emphatic start.
Almost 100-0 yet again here. This one coming about 3 minutes into the game. But now, 2 minutes left to go is still enough time potentially for 1, maybe 2 pushes, but they have to be solid if you are Together. Really have to make sure they're going in together. All specials have to be online and ready to roll here with 10 missiles and this bubble blower to boot. Probably waiting on at least 1 ink armor to go ahead and press the go button. Here it comes. Stingray coming up from above in a kind of strange position here, trying to find at least 1 person. Now Nagora going to get taken down with a burst bomb. Will they be able to be enough for an opening? No, it's a 2-down situation on another side of the map, but Tri-Slosher starting to move forward, has a power clam, but they're ready, knew exactly how many clams and was able to throw that one in. Now, just 3-down situation for Penguin. It's going to mean enough for Together to continue stacking these clams together. How much will they be able to find? Already down to 24. Now there are a few more clams back in spawn. They see all of them, but is there enough of a presence in this zone area? It doesn't really look like it underneath this barrier, as this NZAP has been pushed away and is swarmed by 3 members. Still might be enough time for another power clam to get charged, but things have got to move fast if you're Together.
And again, I hate to keep going back to this ink armor, but that's the difference between ink armor and these other specials. If you're the last one alive and you build up a special and it's a bubble blower, you pop it, you have 3 shield / buddy / damage dealers at your disposal. If you have an armor and you build it up and you're the last one alive, you get it, your teammates get it, but where are your teammates? They're still coming back from spawn, trying to jump to you, or they might not have received it if they were still deceased. So having something that can do damage, can protect with you is such a crucial thing, and that's part of why I think the push went a little bit further there for Penguin than it did for Together. And in the waning seconds here, Together's going to have to find something because they are not close to any specials so far.
Stingray and one Ink Armor already used to get this much control of mid. How much more would they be able to find with the power clamp? They have to be careful with this rush, though. Able to pick Maple off here. Now, will they be able to move on forward? Bubble Blower coming out here. Allows for 1 football go in, 2 footballs go in. They are very close to being able to take this. There's enough clams on top, and someone's going to be able to take it. I believe that's Nagor that was able to find that pick, but just one clam separates these two teams. There's one player here that notices it, but they're just far enough away from the basket. Will they be able to sneak one in? No! The barrier goes up just in time. Oh my goodness, it's Penguin that's able to just barely hold on.
You know, in those action movies where, you know, somebody's running, like they're at the top of a building and there's a helicopter waiting for them, and there's somebody leaning out of the helicopter going, "Take my hand!" And they jump and they just barely miss each other's hands, and that character plunges to an untimely demise. I think that's exactly what we just saw there. The last member with clams close to the basket, desperately trying to hop, skip, and jump their way to the basket, throwing that final clam, and the basket essentially rejecting them in the worst way possible, the most harmful way. And so, unfortunately, what could have been a great Cinderella comeback in that game for Together retains a victory instead for Penguin, gives them a 2-0 lead, and puts them 1 game win away from a Grand Finals championship here in the Clam World Cup 7.
So close. If you are Together, hey, they were firing on all cylinders, though. Have to give them props, right? Able to find those pushes. And like I said, 1, maybe 2, they were able to find both of those pushes that they needed. Just came up 1 single clam short. That is sometimes all of the difference. And it's going to make the difference here. Now it's Penguin on tournament point. We'll have to see what Together can pull together for their final counter pick of the day. And if it'll be enough to stand up. Again, didn't see any alterations there. I was expecting maybe we'd see, a slight difference, but I guess Tri-Slosher player here on Together must really like those burst bombs, I think, as well as the other thing. It's one of the things that we've been noticing so far is able to find a lot of those picks from afar, even when, that Tri-Slosher isn't going to be in range. So perhaps they're thinking about that a little bit as they start leaning towards what they're going to pick next. Of course, they're only able to pick 6 maps now out of the rest of the monthly map pool. So only time will tell as to what exactly they'll put forward.
Yeah, there's, I am not an expert in Splatoon by any means, but I do know my Tri-Sloshers pretty well, and, it may just not be getting the job done here. We're going to another grandiose map in Piranha Pit, another one that's been popular today, and one where, you might have some sharking options for the Tri-Slosher, but it's pretty open and available. You basically have to be running Ninja Squid in order to go undetected when you're trying to swim around like that, or use the ink rails to your advantage to get behind the enemy team. You could go with another type of slosher like the base vanilla slosher with that suction bomb antenna missiles to give your team a bit more in terms of locations, to put on a little bit more pressure. It hasn't been that popular of a choice today, but if you wanted a baller variant, you could of course go with the slosher deco. Sprinkler helps you to build that up. It does have a pretty substantial special cost, but we're going to have to see, not just for the Tri-Slosher player, but of course for the entirety of Together, how far their adaptability stretches as we go to what could be the final map of this series and tournament.
Looking for it here. We'll have to see exactly what comes of this. How different will these compositions appear? And it looks like not very. Still sticking with the same exact composition here is Together. They've got to be feeling incredibly confident with this, incredibly comfortable here as they head into this next map. But again, no Ted Umbrellas on this map. It's not going to be about staying power. It's going to be all about that map presence. How much ink is going to be on the ground at your feet? How much are you going to be able to move around? And how much are you going to enable this Tri-Slosher to find some of these picks that it's been struggling with so far in this series?
Yeah, and I saw that 2 of their 4 members are running last-ditch effort, so they are expecting potentially to go down a bit in this series, but are trying to hold on as best they can. It's going to be the first pop here with the Inkjet also getting a kill right next to the barricade. Great offensive presence here by Penguin as they use that to at least get the first pop of the game. It's only going to be that as just the Power Clam goes into the basket, and on the opposite side of things together, expending both, I think, Ink Armor and Bubble Blower here. Now the Stingray as well. So really they've used just about everything. They are going to have their second armor in the form of the Tri-Slosher, which they will pop now, but not all that many clams at their disposal. Maybe they're thinking something similar in terms of if we can just get a pop at all, which is what they do just now, maybe that's better than nothing. Maybe that gives us a foothold, and for now, it'll give them a slim lead.
Pop came just a little bit late. I'm sorry, I have to laugh at this. The inside player tried throwing that clam in the barrier, but he didn't have 10. It wasn't a football. And so unfortunate there for Together, not able to put that one in. But nonetheless, they're starting to make a little bit of presence here, right? Able to find the lead, able to match what their opponents were able to do. And we might see this one run the gambit going back and forth here in terms of this momentum pendulum swinging. Is now we're starting to see a little bit more map presence coming in for the members of Penguin. You see Sugi on this Jet Squelcher. There's the 10 missiles coming out, falling back, picking up this Power Clam, and now potentially could be looking for a jump onto some of these teammates. But unless Nagora trying to find this Bubble Blower coming in here, able to find him for more clams, and now potentially looking for a jump opportunity. Oh, actually just going to pop these bubbles, continue pursuing. But here comes the Ink Armor, able to shoot right through that Ink Armor. Now trades underneath the barrier. It's not going to be enough here for Penguin to make a solid push, and so the defense might hold, but we'll have to see what this Power Clam does, as Nagora is still distracting 2 members, pulling them all the way down here. And now they've got to swim right back up this conveyor belt. Looks like it just didn't quite buy enough time for the teammates to come back in with this Power Clam, and so now things are going to stabilize in this game.
Yeah, that is how terrifying Nagora is. Just the ability to not be satiated with getting map control up to the basket, but going beyond that, past the conveyor belt, getting a kill there and delaying 2 others is going to delay the momentum and the progress here of Together. We saw that Stingray come out, not ultimately doing too much here. 2 specials back online for Penguin. That's going to be the Inkjet, which we see on the far side of the screen, and also the, I believe, bubbles were back up, but the Foil Squeezer does end up going down. So that's going to be 1 threat lost here, as they are still going to be able to regain the lead by popping that basket once again. Raymaru is going to go down to those drop shots. However, they will expend their life for it, as Sugi able to get a lasting kill there into Odin X. That will probably be, unfortunately though for them, the end of the push, as still reclaiming the lead with a minute and a half left. This could be more of a metered, tenuous game here than we saw in the previous couple.
This one is going to be incredibly tight. So this continues to go back and forth. Now Stingray comes out, able to find 1. Will it be enough of an opening to find the rest of these members? You see the Foil Squeezer just going in immediately, but the Brush is following right up from behind. That's Maple, able to find the trade here, but now the jump is going to come in with the Power Clam. How much more will the follow-up be here? Is they're going to be able to take the lead? Now with more clams going into the basket, actually, it's at least 7 clams getting unloaded into the basket for Together with just 60 seconds remaining. They're able to take quite a sizable lead here. In fact, most amount of a lead we've seen so far in this game. The question remains, would they be able to hold on? How much will they be able to fight off the onslaught of specials that are about to come in from Penguin, as now we're starting to see some of these things come out?
That was Ryusei Boy just dancing around those bubbles, doing everything that they could to dodge the incoming shots and keeping the push alive, getting them all the way to 33. We saw a jump there, and Odin is actually able to get the pick off. The bubbles are coming out as they try and salvage that Power Clam, but that's not going to work either. It's going to be essentially a 3-out situation here, and now 24 clams existing on the side of Together. Together trying to push Together, but they have a Toxic Mist in their way. 10 seconds left to go. The Pity Clam is now at the base of the bracket here for the members of Penguin, and Odin trying to find a place that they can jump through. Rotoe also trying to find a spot. They've lost a few of their clams as they enter into overtime, but they have the Stingray at their disposal. The bubbles and the Ink Armor are also going to be available. They use 1 Ink Armor in the form of the N-Zap, and they use the second now, as well as the Bubble Blower with the Tri-Slosher. Rotoe desperately trying to stay alive. They end up getting 1 but fall after only putting up 1 bubble. Raymaru trying to get another kill here as well, but they're going to go down. It's a massacre, and that massacre favors the winning team, as nobody from Penguin is able to break the barricade, and Together just might have a shot as they take game 3.
Love that play from Together. You'll notice, again, had 2 power clams at the ready, charging up. You made the comment. They've got 24. What do they realize? 10 seconds left in the game. If our opponents want to push, it's now or never. We've taken almost the entire map. They've got to paint through us. They've got to pop all of their specials, commit all of their resources before they can even think about approaching the barrier. This will be good enough. They fall back. They're able to find just a comfortable enough position after they force the 10 missiles away. And all of a sudden, Penguin doesn't have any resources in order to actually push into the barrier. Hats off to Together for playing that defensively incredibly well. And they're going to be able, as you said, forcing this game 4. We'll have to see what picks come out here. Of course, Penguin earlier played Gobi for their counter pick. That worked incredibly well for them with that Inkjet able to go up in the sky, able to maintain that presence on top of the opponent's area once they were able to kind of take care of things. We'll see if they opt for that here or if they decide to go for something else.
I have no reason to suspect otherwise. I mean, the only thing that we've seen that could indicate, that they wouldn't go there is maybe if they decide for Inkblot instead. Inkblot's the other map that we've seen quite a bit of today.
Yeah.
I think lends well to their playstyle. I think, the Slayer aspects of not just the center court, but also the plat is going to be big. But they are going to go with Gobi Arena, which I think is, as you mentioned, a map that very much so suits what they're trying to do, the playstyle that they're trying to run. And we see both Naigora and Reimaru instantly lock in. So they're not really planning to change much. They're, I wouldn't say riding that last match off as a fluke, but they're very confident in their team style. I mean, Together's been doing the same thing, honestly. They've been sticking with what feels comfortable to them, and it happened to work out for them there on Piranha Pit. So as we go into Gobi Arena, which again is another quite large map, and you have some obstacles to get in, it's not going to be as free of an entry point into the basket. So that's what you're going to have to consider when you're trying to make that push. So those bubbles and the walls are going to be even more important on a map like this one, even if it can't give you full coverage.
Yeah, we'll have to see, exactly how this one plays out here. Again, this double ink armor composition, gonna have to see exactly how it is going to pan out. As now we see these players loading in, and they are rolling towards mid now. Of course, very similar compositions. Actually, K-Shot in instead of an N-Zap, opting for the 10 missiles, able to chip things away a little bit more instead of opting for that ink armor, forcing your way in. I think I like that play overall, but we'll see if it pans out for Together.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I wasn't a huge fan of the ink armor, and I think on a map like this one, 10 missiles can be a great way to sort of passively get some map control wherever your opponent is, and also, of course, as we mentioned previously, spot out where the opponent is going to be. So it is a power clam so far, plus for our yellow team here, they are going to pop the 10 missiles first, Together trying to use that to their advantage as they have most of the control in mid. However, it's starting to turn. We're starting to see a resurgence here on the side of Penguin once again, as the K-Shot is the first one to go down here, and they used up most, if not all, of their specials here. The Tri-Slosh are going to be spotted out by the entirety of those 10 Penta missiles, which is forcing them all the way back up to their overload. They are going to build up the ink armor in the process, but again, is that going to allow you to push forward, or is it all defense at this point for Together?
Well, here it is. Bubbles, Ink Armor, Stingray trying to come out here to net together something, and it looks like they've been able to kind of make a push solid. They actually just ignored that foil squeezer, and now are just coming back to find it. Able to find 2 power clams in the barrier, and now another 2 down here as the foil squeezer is able to pick up another, maintaining this presence, much like we were seeing from Penguin earlier, now going all the way back around behind, throwing one in, taking some for the road here, but 24 points might be it. Actually, no, wait, able to find a few more in the front door this time around. Finally able to come on forward, but they still just cannot find everybody. No, able to find one onto Naigora here as well. Oh, next gonna get taken down, but down to the 9-point mark. When these teams are pushing on this map, they are making it count.
what these teams exemplify with their weapons is using them to the exact furthest range that they can possibly be used, and that's exactly what we saw there from the Jet Squelcher as they were backed into a corner and were still able to get the kill. Now we're seeing the Inkjet come out. I believe that's from Maple, ends up getting a kill there. Raymaru trying to do the same on that grading, and they are, and as they throw the Clam, they're going to get splatted. A teammate trying to pick it up, and they are. They're going to go from 74 to 54 and now past the 50 mark, and they still have a bubble at their disposal, which should allow at least one player a jumping off point and allow them a few more Clams, which they have gotten. They're trying desperately to keep this last bubble alive. If nothing else, Sugi's going to use it to get out. And again, a pretty nice push there. Plenty of time left on the clock, and as a closing point, it seems like every team needs that staple, consistent player, and for Together, Rotoe on that foil squeezer has really been it.
Really has this time around, but you have to think for Penguin, was that a little bit of a push out of desperation? It didn't look like it was completely in sync with everyone going forward at the same time. Sure, you're trying to stagger your Clams, but at the same time, you're committing so many resources to just stay alive underneath the barrier. And now, with a 3-down situation, your opponents might have an opportunity to continue pushing on forward. You see Maple on the Inkjet going up in the sky, trying to find at least one of these members Together, but they're doing such a good job hiding in this yellow ink, able to find one, but that Stingray is going to back on away. Now Raymaru able to clean up, find a second. It looks like it was enough to dissuade these members of Together from continuing to push, but now Raymaru gets caught out. Now going down again here, and with 90 seconds left to go, Penguin is going to have to find something if they want to comfortably take this series. Otherwise, they'll be forced to a Game 5.
Yeah, Ryusei Boy trying to use this to build up the 10 missiles here. They are going to have it available, and they are going to send them out now, trying to see if they can find a cheeky little pick. They're also going to expend the Sting right here, trying to find where the members are. They seem to at least know where the Power Clam is, so they're trying to target them down, but mostly they're just able to get one pick. The rest of the groundwork is being done at the ground level again by Rotoe, and now we're seeing some gatekeeping being done here in the middle of the map as they're trying desperately to not only get Clams, but also hold on to control in mid. We have yet another 10 missiles being built up. It's going to go on to 2 or maybe 3 members there of Penguin, and the Bubble Blower is going to try and allow them to push forward together as well, but they lose a good bit of their Clams here. What a great defense, and also turning into offense now by Penguin, who's just about to get to a second Power Clam.
They didn't burn any of their specials yet. They might be looking to do that soon, as now Ninkor is in position for these bubbles to come on up, probably waiting on the Inkjet of Maple to go up, and here it is, trying to find a few of these picks, able to find one, now looking for a second one, but all the meanwhile, someone else is going to get traded down on the other side of the map. It's going to be a 2-down situation for Together. Will it be enough? It looks like that football didn't go in. It got blocked by this edge of the map. Raymaru wants to go back in to try to collect this one, but how many other members are around? That football is just going to be able to get picked up by Raymaru, but will they be able to find the way back in with just a few seconds left to go? It looks like they might be able to, but no, the hold at the gate is going to stand true, and Together is going to send us to a Game 5.
Dude, commentary name for the future Rap God Duo, because there have been some hype moments in this set where we have had to just absolutely lose our minds trying to keep up with all of the crazy action that's been happening. Honoka leading the charge here with a 12 KA, assisted by those Ink Armors. And again, you know, the strong starts that Together has put together has really made a difference here. They have done a great job of losing some of their pacificity and their hesitancy, I think, as well, that they had in those first couple of games, and are not shy on using their specials when they get them. We saw that a lot with both the Ink Armor and the Tenta missiles, whereas, you know, Penguin really tried to save them only when they were making a push, which works in theory, but again, if you have some of those little things, the little things build up over time. I'm talking about when, you know, they try to throw the Power Clam in and it just falls short. Now, one of your other teammates has to redirect their thought process, go down, pick up that Clam, throw it in, get out, and try and save the other Power Clam, which they were barely able to do. And it's plays like that that, of course, have gotten Penguin to this stage of the tournament, the grand finals, but it's a little bit too late in the game for them to be doing that. Great defensive job by Together to get a push going and then hold on to mid, which is a hugely important part of any map, but especially Gobi Arena with the way it's laid out.
I mean, you have to feel for them, right? Like, you're panicked. This is your last opportunity to win the game. You don't want to go to a Game 5, right? You're bound to make a mistake like that. It's just bound to happen. Honestly, it's kind of difficult to tell. I mean, you know, especially in the moment where we're trying to analyze this, it's difficult to tell without a replay whether or not actually getting that Clam in first would have helped. To your point, absolutely. Still have to send someone down to redirect that. But even still, it looks like someone was picked off from behind that was carrying that second power Clam to begin with, right? And so it was only then that Raymario had to go back for that power Clam and try to make their way back through the gate. But it was just that much more difficult to do, right? Especially with that grading being there, you have to be swimming forward. You can't just be walking and shooting your weapon in order to get through that. So, it's one of the things specifically about Gobi that I think was so, it's incredibly interesting, something we don't see on any other map, and certainly a map that we don't play very often. And speaking of a map we don't play very often, a map we haven't seen yet today for Game 5, Zach, it's Muscle Forge Fitness. This time around.
Takes a Game 5 to produce something special, and in this case, it's something that we have not seen, as you said, yet during this tournament, at least the streamed portion of it. Muscle Forge Fitness. So you have to look at this map from the perspective of two levels. The elevation changes. You have basically almost a moat of area sort of in the lower portion of the map, which surrounds this sort of raised platform, this square-like structure, with a couple of ramps going down from either side. And of course, grading is a pretty sizable portion of this map. So, if you play Swatlings, if you play longer distance weapons, we've seen Jet Squelcher be a popular option in this tournament and in this game mode. So, using that from behind the grading to where if anybody wants to get to you, they either need to come down into that sort of moat area and find a way up to you, or you can just back off and they have to walk across the grading to get to you. That can be a huge advantage. But both of these players and teams are great at using, again, the range extremes of their weapon to their advantage. Let's see what they decide to bring for what will be the ultimate match in this tournament.
The ultimate match is here. This will be the final game of the day. So hope you've got your notebooks out. Hopefully they're filled up by this point. And Raymaru switching over to the L3D as these players are starting out. L3D coming out here for that Inkjet here as well. Has to be useful, peeking over, and even that Rapid Pro Deco coming back out for Nagora as well. Weapon comps we have not seen so far today.
Yeah, I think the nozzle-nose weapons are quite a favorite here in the Western scene, but they're not. I haven't seen them that much played in Japan, and now they're being brought out. We also have the return of the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, which again is going to lend itself toward an armor. So they say, all right, we see your armor, we see that it's a threat, we need something like that ourselves to sort of even the playing field. And Nigora has been just filthy with the directs that they're able to hit. Of course, the direct normally not a one-hit KO with the Rapid Blaster variant, but if they have a little bit of damage, if they have a bit of ink under their feet, for example, they might be able to get something there. 2-down situation going to be going against the team members of Penguin. So 4 together, they do again what they did in the last game. They build up map control, they get control of mid, they get a couple of takedowns, and they're not too flashy or too aggressive with how they push forward. They wait until the right time and wait until they have the right specials, which they're popping 2 of now.
You're going to have to see that here, but I don't know actually. Since we haven't seen this map so far today, I don't know how it's going to fare in terms of the spectrum. Are we going to see a lot of very strong pushes, or are we just going to see a handful of weak pushes that are traded back and forth? I suppose only time will tell, but it looks like it's going to be incredibly difficult to get these players into the barrier, at least with how these teams are playing right now. So we're probably going to have to see these teams make it count when they finally do get that power Clam connecting and breaking with that barrier. But now all of a sudden, Nagora pushed all the way back here on this Rapid Pro Deco. Unfortunately, has to try to find a way back in. Now, all of a sudden, Ink on our pop, starting to move on forward. It's Sugi on this mini, able to throw this one in, and now maybe a few clams to follow up here as well. Looks like there are a few in the area, but there's also enough green ink to make sure that these, members aren't quite comfortable here together, doing a good job of maintaining a little bit more of that defensive presence, and only one extra follow-up clam is going to go in this basket, leaving the door wide open for plenty more pushes to come.
That push starts with Nigora getting a cheeky pick on to Honoka, the Tri-Slosher, using the exact range where Nigora was below in the sort of moat area and getting just that final little bit of damage off on them to take them out, taking away a big threat and allowing them to walk across the grading and get, as you mentioned, a sort of smaller but not insignificant push. Now we have a couple of specials that are sort of lingering about. Now, for the most part, it's going to be together with the special advantage as we see the Tena Missile has almost been built up, and we are getting close to that Stingray and the Ink Armor as well. So they're going to have a lot at their disposal. However, Penguin also with a good bit to go as well. They're popping the Inkjet once again. They know where that Power Clam is, and they find the kill there. They were trying to get the kill as well into Odin X and just didn't have the range or the shot to get that kill as well. So that's going to give them another chance to don't get a Power Clam and another Power Clam as well, bringing them down past the 50 mark. Sugi, unafraid of that suction bomb, just able to put in 1 or 2 more clams, saying, all right, you know, I accept my death and I will extend our lead for the sake of the team because of it. That's something that I can definitely admire.
And at this point, as we've seen, it could be the difference, depending on exactly what the response is coming in from Together. But even still, Together, like we've been mentioning with its double armor composition, doesn't have a lot of tools at their disposal to really break in. Sure, they've got these bubbles, but these bubbles haven't been able to find the positioning so far. It's just this ink armor that's forcing these members back continually. And it looks like Raymaru able to pick up that assist there onto the one member that perhaps pushed a little bit too far forward. So this is a tri-slosher. Should probably expect that. Was looking for a trade or something of the nature. And now trying to go up in the air is Raymaru, but cannot quite seem to find anybody. 2 power clams on the board for Together. Will they be able to find this push? But now 60 seconds left to go. Nagora is able to find one there with a few directs and a little bit of ink under the feet. Able to take care of business. That power clam has the risk of just despawning, and Nagora is watching it like a hawk. Able to take out the other power clam there as well. So even though we've got Broto, excuse me, pushing forward with these bubbles, they weren't able to find these power clams. They weren't able to hold on to these power clams, and they don't have another opportunity, another tool at their disposal to push. Finally, the Stingray comes out here with that football on the back line, but at what cost? How are they going to be able to find a way into this basket with just 24 seconds left?
What a roller coaster of emotion here. We saw Together go from 27 clams to 14 to 3 and back up again. It's been up and down for this team who hasn't even been able to dunk one in. They're going to lose a member here. They're going to lose 2 members. They're going to lose basically all of their firepower going toward those power clams. They are able to break the barrier finally as their teammates bring reinforcements. Rotaway trying to hide again behind that bubble, but they're being flanked, and it looks like a triple kill there. That's going to be a full wipe, and that's going to be also the lead. I can't believe it. Unbelievable from Together, who comes from behind in the most unlikely fashion, pulls off the reverse sweep via a triple kill that fully wipes Penguin, and they come away with the victory here on Muscle Forge Fitness.
What just happened? Someone just threw a suction bomb at a bubble or something and 3 members died? What was that? I wish I had the replay material right now to go back and look at that. I don't even know how that happened, but the luckiest of breaks for Together to be your Season 7 Clam World Cup champions. What in the world?
In the most unexpected fashion. I really just, of all things, I didn't see. I knew they had reinforcements. I knew they were going up the ramp. I saw the first player go down. I'm like, oh, you know, that's probably it. They've lost both of their power clam carriers. Bam, bubbles are still around. As you mentioned, I think a suction bomb ricochets off, and that tunnel vision of, okay, we just got to defend the basket. We just got to defend the basket for just a little bit longer. Tricks them rather into getting caught by that explosion. Sends them down, causes a full wipe, and it's free sailing from there. Together, never giving up, sending it all the way to Game 5 and pulling off that amazing reverse sweep.
Yeah, I mean, all right, let's see. Hang on. Will I be able to find... Oh, actually, this is the Twitch clip viewer, so I can't go frame by frame, which is a little bit unfortunate. I don't even know what that was. I actually, it looks like it was a bubble pop. But what caused the bubble to pop? I guess it was was it a splat bomb that was thrown earlier? It must have been. Oh my goodness. Just for all of the members to go down due to the bubble pop right there on your last stand, and enough members to still be up to find the clams in. That was incredible, and I'm sure something... I mean, if you're Penguin, you're looking at that, you're like, all right, well, I guess we tried. Like, you can only be so mad at that, right?
I mean, that's a set where you go best of 3, you go best of 5, you go best of 7, you have a different result every time. It really is just the back and forth of having the, sort of swinging momentum of how much pressure each team is putting on them, the counter picking, the mind games, the tenacity to keep going forward, and together really just taking the prime opportunity. And maybe sometimes luck does play into it. Maybe sometimes the bomb is in the right place at the right time. Maybe it's skill. Maybe you're waiting until the last second to pop that bomb. Regardless, these two teams I think have created an amazing story today. This is something that I hope we continue to see in future Clam World Cups and also in just future tournaments in general, because I think these two teams going back and forth makes for a great story. We are also eventually going to be seeing the winners interview take place. We're going to get a little bit of help in just a bit, I believe, from Tic Tac, who has been helping a lot on the JP side of things. But just some final thoughts about this tournament in general, and especially our grand final set, K-Bot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting strategies at play, right? And I think it's one of the interesting things is, we're talking so much about the Western meta perhaps being, oh, well, it's only 10 missiles. Oh, it's always quad shooter. We were seeing a lot of blasters. We were seeing a lot of sloshers. We saw a handful of rollers. We saw a lot of brushes. There were so many other weapons that got played in this event today. And it just, I think, goes to show how many different strategies. Oh, even Tenebrellas, by the way, right? Which I actually was looking at, was like, do you really want to do that? But these players were making it work in a lot of ways. But I think in a lot of ways that, players might not expect, right? You're thinking about that Tenebrella, and it's basically just sitting under the barrier. It's not used as your pushing weapon. It's used as the thing that's keeping your presence once you're underneath that barrier, right? So I think overall, we were seeing a lot of these sorts of things. And even now, right, double ink armor compositions were something that was meta a year ago, not really now, right? They weren't even running 10 missiles at all. It was Stingray, Bubbles, double armor, right? Or it was your special composition for Together that was able to secure the deal. And we had our doubts for a large part of the tournament. We were like, hey, on a lot of maps, this might not work. And, it'll be interesting to kind of go back and watch through some of these things and be like, all right, well, how was that actually working? How are these compositions actually factoring in to one another? But yeah, just impressive stuff to see overall, and should be really interesting as we continue to progress.
Yeah, and I think just some of the plays that we saw here were phenomenal. I mean, you have the last second push, Reimaru, Nigora grouped up, joined by their teammate, all of them in the wrong place at the wrong time. A trifecta of just unluckiness, of Murphy's Law, as we mentioned earlier in the stream. So that is just a horrible, horrible way for things to end if you're Penguin. It's because it's just, again, it comes down to the wire, and some games are like that, which is phenomenal. I love seeing that, but I think you still have to be proud of what you've done today if you're Penguin, and of course for Together coming through, making it to grand finals, going down 2-0, and still having the resolve to say, and sticking with your picks that you feel comfortable on, especially like the Tri-Slosher. They didn't give it up. They said, all right, ink armor's our thing, we need it. Whether we go for 1 or 2, we feel like we need to have it. And it, in games 3 and 4, caused Penguin so much distress that they were like, okay, well, we have to go back to our armor pick, which was the Rapid Blaster Pro Deco, and it worked for a while. But when you get to the end of the game and you don't have much map control and you're rushing back from spawn, that kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, impressive stuff. We should mention, right, they did have that adaptation there towards the end where that K-shot comes in instead of the N-Zap. Thinking through that a little bit, all right, they've got a 10 of missiles now. They've got something that can kind of force their opponents around just a little bit more, can kind of, perhaps be a little bit more chaotic in nature and cause a little bit more of that. But we're just waiting to see. Folks, for those of you that are just joining, your tournament did just conclude. Together is our victors today. Rusi Boy, Rotoe, Honoka, and Odin X are your victors. They beat a team including Reimaru and Nagora on the other side, but believe we're going to be sticking around for a little bit of a winner's interview. We're going to be getting some help from Tic Tac in a bit, and I believe they might be ready pretty shortly here, and so we're going to hear from Tic Tac helping kind of translate and bring this to the rest of us here.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello, good sir.
So they are going to do the JP interview on the Japanese stream, and I'll be live translating it. We do have one question from the Western side that I will translate later on, but they are interviewing. Who is it? Interviewing Jusei Boy on the side of Together. That was such a hype set. Not gonna lie. Grand finals was
It was.
crazy. Was it a reverse sweep?
It was.
Yeah.
Oh my, the ending too. Oh, okay, here they go. So they're congratulating Jusei Boy right now.
かったです。もう言いたいことたくさんあるんですけど、まずは視聴者の皆様にご自身のお名前を再度、そして使用していた武器、そしてチームメンバーのお名前を教えてください。
So team name, weapon you used. His name is Jusei Boy. He uses Zap and Blaster, I think.
そしてチームメンバーの紹介をお願いいたします。
And Odin X other team uses the custom jet sculpture. Roto uses like the bottle, the squeezer.
そして
That's what they call in Japan. And Honoka used a weapon. I'm assuming bucket. My bad. I can't speak and listen at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
Yeah, it should be Tri-Slaughter.
ありがとうございました。
Okay,
まずは
there you
こ
go.
のチームで練習とかってどれぐらいされて
So
ますか？
how often do you practice with this team?
ですね、本番の前の対抗戦だけですね。
So they only practice once before the tournament in a scrim. In Japan, of course, there's a lot more pickups. There's not a lot of like set teams in Japan.
でもね、本当にチーム連携抜群だったからやってたろうなっていう
So
予測を
yeah, given the fact that they're just a pickup and they only practice once before the tournament, they had a lot of
普段の
coordination.
ジャサリーは結構されますか？
僕全くしないですね。
And they also usually just never play clamblets.
まさかの
they just scrim in zones, it seems like. So interesting that they were able to win this tournament, but congrats to them. It shows that if you have fundamentals, you can
あー
make things work.
うんうんうんうん
Yeah, the modes are not all that different.
Together という
you know.
チーム名由来はどういったところなんですか？ Together
Mhm. Oh, and then the meaning of their team
好
name.
きで
おはい
出ましたね。
あ Together 自体の意味が好きってことですね。
そうですね。
And they just like the meaning of together, is what they said. Like the concept of being together is something they are fond of.
Love that.
So that nice, yeah.
全員優勝経験者ということに。
And also, members of his team, although it's the first time they played together with this specific team, all of the members of the team, I'm not sure if it's all, but most, if not all, of the members of the team have won the tournament in the past, whether it be with different teams. But so, even though it's a surprise that they won, even though it's their first time playing together, it's not a surprise that these individuals won because they're all just really good.
Right.
する前ですね。直前。
そうですね。まあ勝てると思ってずっとやってましたね。
強気だったんですよ。もちろん、勝ちを諦めずに。
気持ちで負けたらもう負けちゃうんで。
And so, like, how were you able to do the reverse sweep? And they just said that they they always just thought that it's winnable. They never thought, oh shit, oh shoot, we lost. They always thought, they always
Fine.
thought, we got this, you know. But yeah, determination was a big factor in making the comeback.
おめでとうございました。
Yeah.
ありがとうございます。
It's all about that mental game, you know?
It really is. Like,
Really
Splatoon
is.
is a game all about momentum. I've played this game for 5, 6, I don't even know how long, whenever Splatoon 1 came out. And I can tell you, there's been so many reverse sweeps, all based off of momentum. Whoever wins that
Yep.
first game, and whoever's able to continue to carry that momentum, usually wins the set.
いや
All you need is one win, and you just carry that
ーちょっ
momentum.
とこっち最初何が起きてるのか分かんなくてなんかあれなんか全員倒れたって言ってでリプレイ見てなんとか分かったって感じだったんですが
And they were talking about the end, how they just popped the bubble to get the
す
triple.
ごい偉かったですね。あそこの心境どうでしたか？
もう心臓バクバクでしたね。
And they were talking about his decision to throw the bomb at the bubble instead of just shoot or sword clams.
いやー
And they were talking about how they were really nervous during the entire time.
うん
Um, as expected. That was a pretty
あと
insane
ショッツ
comeback.
決勝戦でのショッツがあったと
I
思う
would
ん
be.
ですが、
Yeah.
ちょっと複数枚キルが入って、まあ、ほのか選手もゴール下の付近に行ってカモンって言ってその入れに行く素振りを見せてたじゃないですか。
そうですね。
でその後にジャンプで引き返してその防衛の準備を整えたと
So
思うん
they're
です
talking about
が、
how
あれは
right
チー
before
ム
the
全体
wipe
で
at the end,
こう声かけとかがあって
they
ボール
were
に
like
回ろうって話
spamming
になった
commander,
んです
trying to
け
get a
ど、
push going, but when they got missed,
そうです
they
ね。
fell
もうま
back
さに
and
スメ
instantly
はもう
swapped
や
to
めて
defense.
守りに徹しようみたいな。
And they're talking about how
そ
they're
れを
able
誰
to
が言い始めたんです
after
か
that
メン
instantly
バーと
switch
して
back
は。
to the offense.
オーディンとロットが主軸になっ
So they
て、
went from offense to defense to offense real
あ
fast.
あ、なるほど。じゃ
And
あ、あじゃあそう
that
オ
was
リニクスさん、
due
あれですよ
to
ね、クリップアップレスは
Odin's
待ってま
call
した
out, I
もんね。
believe.
じゃあ、ほのか
そうなん
Hold
で
up.
すよ。
選手
This is
と
hard.
優勢ボーイ選手はどちらかというとこう前側に行きたかったんだけど、コールがあったから引いたと
But
いう
yeah,
ような感じ。
just
そう
the
いけ
efficiency
る
of
か
their
なって思ったんですけど、
decisions to
うんうんうん
これ無
うん。
理
be
や
on
な
the
って
offense and
自分で思っ
defense.
たのと、オーダーが入ったんで、攻めはやめて守りに徹しようかなっていう感じでした。
なるほど。いや、素晴らしい判断だと思いま
Oh,
した。
they're talking
カ
about
ウンター
the
がついてもこれ入れにいけるなと思ったんです
the
が、
Piranha
そこ
Pit
引
game
くんだ
too.
なと思ったんで、 いやー、チー
And
ム
they're
と
talking
して
about
は動きが良
just
かったですね。で、
just in
前半
general,
の
like
話なんですが、
how they're
基本
able
的
to
にやっ
just
ぱりチ
uh,
ーム全員
consistently
が
make
サイドフック
comebacks
スをちゃん
happen,
と持って攻めの時にカウントが大きく
keep
進
up
めるようにな
constant
っていたと思うん
pressure,
です
switch
が、
between defense,
あの
offense,
辺は
and
チームとして意識
just
してアサリ
overall
をこう
communication
共有
between the
して持っ
team.
ておこうみたいな意識はあったんですか？
いや、特にそこら辺はなくて、みんながなんか持ってたみたいな感じです。
ああ、じゃあ、おのずと積極的にアサリをみんな持っていたからこそ大きくカウントが進めるパターンが多かったと。
そうですね。
And another question was, did you guys as a team like focus on everybody carrying clams, or did you have certain people pick up the clams?
うん
And it seems like they didn't really try to coordinate that within the team. It seems like everybody individually just picked up clams as they saw fit. And it just turns out that because everybody's picking up clams as they can, that they just had
あ
enough
そう
for
で
the
す
pushes.
ね。まあ、今大会は
True solo
海
queue
外の
mentality.
スプラトゥーンファンの
Yeah,
配信で見て
honestly,
るという
just
ことなの
just put
で、
four really good players,
向
just
こうの
have them do their own
実況
thing, and you
解
win.
説者
Honestly.
質問が来てるんですけど、ちょっと噛み砕いてちょっと質問させてもらうんですが、
And here's our question. Our question was provided by Keba, and it is
まあいろいろ理由があるらしいんですが、
なるほど。
Keba.
なので
You can ask the
まあ今
question.
大会優勝したい
Basically, it was like if there's one
選手から
takeaway or like thing that
日
you
本人の選手として
want the Western audience to kind of, you know, learn from
プレイに一番
from watching the tournament today, what would it be?
難しいんですけどね、抽象的で。
Oh yeah,
ア
yes,
サリをやる上
exactly.
でこういうことが大事だよっていうのをもう教えていただきたいということだったんですが、
そうですね。仲間を信じることですね。
ちょっとメンタル的な話に
まあ
なってる
まあまあ一番大事なこと
And they're talking about how clams isn't as popular in the
技術
West.
じゃなくて
and
技術では
they're
なくて
asking-
メンタルってことですね。
At you as a Japanese player, what would you like the Westerners to take away
い
from
やでも
watching this
じゃない
tournament?
とあれないですからね。3本取り返して。
And the reply was very simple: believe in your teammates.
All right.
いや
Yeah,
like
it seems
that.
like they were able to make the comeback simply because of the power of friendship, guys. It's all about the journey and not okay. My bad. But
And doing it together.
Exactly. But yeah, unironically, good advice though. Do always believe in your teammates. The moment there's beef within your teammates, the moment there's like just a little bit of non-trust, that's when your coordination goes down. Your overall like power as a team also goes down. So it is corny, it is cheesy, but unironically good advice. And that is how they're able to make the comeback. They always just thought that they always had the mentality that they are going to win, and they always had the trust in their teammates.
ありがとうございました。
いやまたシーズン8出てくれたら嬉しいななんていうのねちょっと
But that will be the end of the winner interview. Thank you very much. And yeah, what we can take from this is trust your teammates, power, friendship, and love. Thank you.
Huge words, especially
Yes.
in today's day and age.
From top Japanese players themselves. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Of course, Tic Tac for translating, Ryusei Boy for the interview of the Japanese stream, and actually, you know, Ridu for inviting us to do this and working with us to make this English broadcast happen. And then, of course, the IPL crew. Inkfarer has been your producer today. Vincent's been helping out a little bit in the background. I've been K-Bot, joined by Zach. Anything else to kind of close the day here, Zach?
Just endeavor for more things like this. I hope that the sort of joint operations between the Japanese scene and the Western scene continues. I hope we can continue to learn from each other. I think the West has a lot to learn from Japan, especially. So I would love to see that continue to grow, and hopefully, as we enter a new era of Splatoon 3, that we see these teams. Even though Japan, they've said they're mostly made of pickups, I'd love to see some members play in tournaments for the Western scene despite the time differences. And I think we've seen just how strong these teams can be with a fantastic, exceptional grand final scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a sight to behold. If you aren't just joining us, I would highly recommend that you go back and watch the previous matches from the day. Of course, this will be on the Twitch channel for a little while, but it's been a lot of fun here today so far. So Zach, thank you for joining. We're pulling you out of retirement slowly but surely.
Thanks,
and I'm never actually going to retire from commentary, so
quote unquote going into retirement, but not for commentary,
right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But nonetheless, folks, thank you so much for watching with us here as we took a look at some of the best players in Japan playing some Clamless. Thank you all so much for joining us. And of course, we'll catch you all next time. Don't forget Super Jump coming up soon. That is actually about a month from now. Make sure you are signing up for that event. And of course, stay tuned to IPL for all other events and things of that nature. So we'll see you around. Take care, everyone. We hope you have yourselves a happy Sunday.
Good night.
Good night.